Okay. I'd like to call to order the Avalon City Council meeting of Tuesday, October 16th. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could please have a moment of silence for Ted Butland, who passed away yesterday, and also for Patsy Smith, who was Maui Hernandez's younger sister and the aunt of Richard. Please be seated. And if we could please have the roll call.
Councilmember Albers. Present. Councilmember Hernandez.
Here.
Councilmember Olson.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy. Here. Mayor Marshall.
Here. Okay, presentations.
Dan, why don't you come up and introduce our guest this evening?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I am really pleased to introduce the representatives from City Fabric tonight. It has been about an 8-month process to get to this point. A draft look at the Recreation Master Plan. The plan for tonight will be an overview. The plan itself, I believe, is about 174 pages. And I've got a couple copies on the dais there for you to flip through. But overview of that draft plan, give yourselves and the community a few-week period of time through October 31st to get back with any comments, suggestions, things we might have missed, typos, and then come back in November to look at it for a final adoption. So with that, I'd like to bring up Alex John, who is the designer, did most of the legwork for the plan, and then Brian Ulaszewski, close, good? Okay. Who is the executive here as well to answer any questions.
Hello, council members. Thank you for your time. This will be a fairly quick presentation. Today's agenda, we have 5 minutes just going through the plan, going through some of the existing planning efforts that we analyzed, as well as the existing conditions analysis, kind of overviewing some of the community outreach to this plan, the proposed open space network, primarily the priority projects, and moving forward, how can this plan be beneficial for the City of Avalon in securing funding for park development and maintenance. One thing I do want to highlight is community outreach. We will be highlighting that as a centerpiece of this effort, just because community outreach was from the get-go the primary objective, to make sure that we have the community voice represented. So the Avalon Recreation Master Plan identifies new and creative opportunities to fill the need in the community for publicly accessible open space facilities in the city. The goals from the city side were to build upon the existing planning efforts of the Los Angeles County Parks Needs Assessment that was done in 2016, which was a comprehensive look at all the cities throughout the county, region, and try to identify ways that we could improve park accessibility, identifying opportunities for new open spaces and parks based on resident and visitor needs, develop concepts, policies, implementation measures, cost estimates for selected sites through the outreach, and identify opportunities to enhance the community and visitor experience at existing parks and facilities. Great. So one thing I do want to mention is that this is a visioning document, so we did really think outside the box when it came to a lot of these projects, but we wanted to make sure that all these ideas were grounded in something that was practical and feasible. So here are the guiding principles that came out from our community outreach. These are in order of what the community thought were of the highest priority when we do our analysis. Present being enhancing existing amenities, focusing on health, accessibility, relating to the surrounding context, safety, both public and pedestrian and visitor, sustainability, education, and preserving our habitat. Like I said, we did a lot of analysis of existing planning efforts, and so some of them are listed below, but we really are not inventing anything new. We're just kind of focusing in. So a lot of the things that implementation measures that we're proposing as part of this document all kind of relate back to city documents already, such as the open space element and the land use element. We also included studies from things like the Imagine Catalina, which was also done outside, and Avalon Vision 2020. But definitely the county's parks needs assessment was the driving force behind studying all of our, during our park analysis. And so we looked at things like park proximity, population, poverty, obesity, vehicle access, asthma, different public health indicators, distance to park, and active transportation, and just general park accessibility. So really approaching park need from a wide lens. So based on the needs assessment done in 2016, these were the priority projects that were identified, and you can see them up there. And the Community Services Department in 2016 also did a survey to kind of verify what the community wanted to see. So through this effort, we did find the top priority projects confirming what the Parks Needs Assessment told us. Then we conducted our existing conditions analysis. We analyzed each of the different parks for each of these different indicators over there, and try to get a kind of well-rounded understanding of the exact need and of Avalon's parks need. Mm-hmm. We also looked a little bit at the spatial. We did a spatial analysis and also tried to understand park need through again just a diversity of different indicators. And we also looked at different opportunity types. One thing that we found immediately was it's the reason why developing parkland is so difficult is because there's not that much land to build on. So looking at creative opportunities and strategies to do such things, we kind of came up with that and explored that as well. Like I said, we kind of went in and did an intense community outreach session. We did one with visitors where we, during the summertime, went out and tried to talk to a couple of visitors, engage their opinions on open space need and what they would like to see here, and we have that in data. We also did stakeholder outreach, so people who we conducted in-depth interviews with stakeholders and got an understanding of the conversations and ideas that these stakeholders would like to see as part of this plan and the feasibility. And then we did a general public outreach effort where we went to 4 different locations throughout the city. We hosted one at the Senior Center, we hosted one at Avalon School, hosted one with city representatives and staff, and we also hosted a public one here in the council chambers. So we had a good turnout. We had about 70 folks overall, and through that, we tried to, again, make sure that people thought big while making sure that things were grounded in reality. And the way that we did that was we created this kind of fun game exercise to where you're supposed to role play yourself as a park planner. And so through that, we kind of were able to prioritize some of these projects and come up with a list of great projects that kind of fill that need. Here are just some photos from it. It utilized a lot of stickers and dots and also location, but it was also an exercise so that community members can also have a better understanding of how park planning is done and some of the things that go into it as well. So in terms of the priority projects, we have, the proposed projects, we have things that the community can take on and language about that and how that can be accomplished. Some of the priority projects that came out, the 4 of them right there, and the proposed open space network and additional open spaces that are being proposed or enhanced, and the connections in between them. Ultimately, we want to create a very well-serving open space network so that it's not just single efforts, but really a strategic approach. So the community center is the top priority project that we heard from the community about, and the amenities listed there are a multipurpose room, restrooms, staff offices, senior center, teen center, a small kitchen, and then secondarily, art studio, indoor gymnasium, and tech center. potential size of that being 9,000 square feet, general cost estimate being $11.9 million. And the way we kind of calculated that, we could go into a little bit later. A swimming facility, the idea was to develop a community-serving swimming facility that supports the recreational, educational, and leisure needs of the community, presuming that the city is able to identify sources of funding and land. Obviously, this would require partnerships with private stakeholders, but we wanted to make sure that this was in there. The identified needs from the community was a community-serving swimming pool, pool deck for tables and chairs, lockers, large restrooms where people would change, pool slide, splash pad, and a hydrotherapy pool. Potential locations, again, we wanted people to think outside the box, so the Civic Center was actually by far the top location for both the swimming facility and the community center, and also other potential locations listed down below. The potential size of this, we thought that an appropriate size would be 6,000 square feet, and a general cost estimate is about $4.9 million, and operating a facility like this per year would come out to around $150,000 per year. Dog park was the third most priority need, and the proposal would be to develop a dog park in Avalon somewhere, serving the needs of visitors and residents of those who have dogs, and that could come with benches, waste bag dispensers, drinking fountains, making sure we have drought-tolerant landscaping, covered trash receptacles, and fencing. Some things that the community expressed need in, but not as primarily, was having training facilities and having shade structures. Similarly, potential locations were the Civic Center, but also existing parks and the Cabrillo Mall. Potential size for that being 10,000 square feet, and general cost estimate being $162,000. And the fourth priority project was to enhance the existing park facilities that we have. And that was actually one of the main goals that we wanted to accomplish. So these were the four public facilities that we thought could potentially, that based on our analysis, needed to be enhanced. And so you have Avalon City Park, Casino Point Dive Park, Lovers Cove, and Avalon Skate Park. So the plan in front of you outlines in detail some more of these priority projects, but also goes into depth about potential funding mechanisms that once you have this plan, you're able to go after more funding. So it kind of sets the stage for that. And lastly, this is meant to really be a plan for, and a tool for implementation. And so the vision plan is a plan for the future, park investment anticipated over a long-term horizon, which will be implemented incrementally over time as the capital, maintenance, and operating resources allow. As municipal resources for maintaining and programming existing facilities are already strained, the vision plan is intended to be phased in over time as projects, operations, and maintenance funding becomes available, and as we build greater stewardship in the community and corporate and partners. Thank you.
Okay, see ya. So I just have a little question, because you have the dog park at 10,000 square feet.
Yes.
Which I think is monstrous, personally. However, then though, when you talk about City Park, you say that would be a place for a dog park. So, and that's with picnic tables or whatever. So, I mean, how do we focus down and go, how do we take it from there? So, you know, like, is 10,000 realistic? Is City Park the realistic place for the dog park? I mean, how do we, I guess amongst ourselves, we kind of have to do a little more prioritization or something?
That's a good question. It would be something where, and then feel free to jump in if you have any other thoughts, but really it's supposed to be a phased approach. We kind of outlined that as well. So with any of our priority projects, we really want to make sure that there are things are done incrementally to one, show that it's proven and needed, but also
right.
Two, that fulfills the short-term need in that time. So it can be done potentially at an existing park for now, but plans for a future facility might come into play.
I see. Oh, okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the community? No?
All right.
Dan, did you want to add anything?
So like I shared, this is just a small part of a larger draft master plan, and As identified, we went through, did the community outreach that I thought we needed to do to just verify some of the things that were being said. That number one, priority was a community center. Number two, it was a pool. Number three, it was a dog park. And so we're looking at some point, council, to bless that approach, and that's where we'll start to emphasize, put emphasis in terms of our time and resources. But as you go through this plan, and like I said, there's 3 copies up on the dais. I'm more than happy to make more copies. As of today, it is on recreation.cityofavalon.com, so you can pick it up there. I will have a copy here at City Hall that the community can take a look at. But there's probably 20 or 30 different ideas over the the course of the next 10 years on how we can go about improving the parks and the open space infrastructure. Dog park was a good example. If that's a priority, we would start to kind of dig into that a little bit more, really start to flesh out where those opportunities lie. But we just needed this as some guidance in terms of where our time and energy goes.
No, it's excellent. Okay, thank you very much.
So our charge now is to read the plan and give any input we have before October 31st? Is that correct?
That would be the goal. I'd be more than happy to meet with you individually, or if you want to shoot me an email or mark up a copy, whatever's easiest for you.
Can I take a copy?
Certainly.
Okay,
certainly.
thanks.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, announcements and written communications.
I did receive one written communication on item number 8 this evening, and that's for the record. And we will be having a budget study session on this Friday at 10 a.m. And you'll hear more about that from Matt during the department head report.
Okay, great, thank you. Department head reports.
Good evening, Bob Greenlaw, Director of Public Works. Yesterday we had a storm surge, which you realize. We lost beach sand again on South Beach and also at Step Beach. We did see some damage again on South Beach right at the seawall, and I'll be bringing forward some emergency work that we'll need to take on that seawall right near the middle stairway. We have lost any support under the footing. It has eroded away, and we're starting to see potential failure of that seawall in that area. So I'll be talking to Coastal Commission about doing emergency action, and also at this Friday, when we present budget, I'll propose some numbers that we need to seek to be able to get those repairs started. So that, and the intent on that would be to stabilize that wall. This is no time to dig into that wall at this point. It's really to stabilize that wall until we get where we don't have the storm surge coming at us.
Is that as simple as K-rails or no?
K-rails. So if you've noticed on the seaplane ramp, any time that you get a slab of concrete, it floats. So,
it floats?
It floats.
Okay.
And so it has Archimedes' principle of buoyancy.
Oh.
And so just like concrete boats, they float, and so
okay. Oh my gosh.
With the forces that are out there with those waves, what we need is really some rock at that front edge. We need to get a piece of equipment down there at that face and get some big rock, something like minimum 2 ton, maybe 3 ton, and get it down below that existing sand we have.
Okay.
And then build it up the wall, and what that will do, will reduce the velocity. So what it does is it reduces that energy of those waves going up. Because what's happening right now is that energy's going up, and as it comes back, it's a vacuum, and it sucks all that sand as that turbulence is happening down at that footing.
Okay.
Because we haven't found bedrock yet.
Okay.
So, and on a better note, we'll start Casino Way restroom rehab in mid-November. Okay, so that construction starts.
Great.
Any questions?
And we're awarding the chairlift tonight.
That's actually an item. That's why I didn't.
Yeah,
bring it.
I know. I
Okay.
just
Yes.
wanted to say that.
We got a good bid.
Right. So, Bob, I know that Coastal at one time gave an administrative approval on an emergency basis when we moved the revetment rocks back in on the other side of the yacht club. So I'm hoping we can reach out, because it was pretty scary to watch the action out there.
I don't anticipate that we're going to have a problem with them. It's one of those things we need to advise them that we're going in. Okay, and so that's a stance.
Yeah,
I
but there's
suggest
still
that
a
we-
process, so I
There
think...
is still a
I
process.
think calling them and saying, hey, we had some wave action and we realized we need to get
Yeah.
something done this winter
So I've
would be smart.
When we did meet it was about 15 months ago with Chuck Posner and Mandy Revelle over there, we had identified that we were going to be working on this project. Now I can report to them, we've done everything we can to stabilize the backside of the wall, and now we're at this spot that we need to get in there and actually do something because it's still early in the storm season.
Okay, great, Bob, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City staff. Just to follow up on Mr. Greenlaw's summary of the wind event, most of our work, as far as the fire department went, was supporting other island and city resources. The bulk of the heavy lifting certainly went to the harbor department and Baywatch Avalon. The other night, over the weekend, with the lightning event, there were some lightning strikes around the island, but nothing that had any starts. There was a fair amount of rain that kept all that in check, and some area patrols were performed by County Fire and Interior. There was also the school carnival that was shut down early because of the lightning. The folks on scene made a good decision to just, in the interest of safety, shut that down while the lightning was in the area. This Thursday is the California Shakeout that comes every year. So that's October 18th at 10:18 is the official drill time when they remind everybody to do their drop, cover, and hold drills. It's also a great time for everyone to, everyone everywhere should know what to do to protect themselves in an earthquake, whether at home or at work or away visiting. And it's a terrific time to revisit any disaster preparedness you have at home or work. So that comes with securing any hazards around your home, come up with some kind of a plan for your family's safety, and then making sure you have disaster supplies, and everyone should be self-sufficient for approximately 3 days. The question that comes up here a lot of times is about tsunamis. In the event of an earthquake, the earthquake is your tsunami warning. When the shaking stops, move to high ground. Don't wait for a siren. Don't wait for a code red, because those systems may not operate as quickly as they need to, depending on the tsunami severity. So when the shaking stops, move to high ground. With that, is there any questions?
I would just like you to mention just quickly about this. I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Mustache-tober?
Stashtober? I'm glad you brought that up.
Stashtober.
Those that don't know, as a charity event in the fire service and in Avalon here, we grow mustaches in support of breast cancer awareness and other cancer charities. So none of us appreciate walking around with these silly mustaches on our face, I can assure you, but it does go for a good cause. So please keep that in mind, and when you see us.
You guys look...
At the end of the month, it'll go away, I promise you.
They look great.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Captain John Hawking from the Sheriff's Department. I'd like to tell you just a couple of incidents that we had recently. One was a family from Canada. They were here on the island, and the husband accidentally dropped his wallet. Normally what happens on the island is somebody picks it up and they bring it to the sheriff's station, and then we return it. Has all the money in it. Happens all the time like that. This time, earlier in the day, Avalon Baywatch happened to pull a boat from the backside of the island that was taking on water during the storm surge. They brought him around to the front. The two people on the boat happened to be in Avalon, and they found the wallet, and they started using the credit card. They used the credit cards at 3 different places in the city. Deputies were able to identify the suspects with the help of the business owners. We recovered all the stolen property, was back out on their boat, and got that returned back to the businesses, and the wallet and everything returned back to the Canadian visitor. Great. They were very pleased, and we'd really like to thank the business owners that helped with that, because they really did a good job.
Oh, that's great.
Another incident that we handled, I received a call of a deer that was shot. It was over on the 300 block of Whitley. And we got there. I brought a couple other deputies that were off duty. I brought them in to help carry the deer because it was so heavy. And we saw a wound on the deer that was consistent with a gunshot. We had not received any gunshot calls. However, I photographed it. I contacted Fish and Wildlife, Fish and Game, and I'm working with them to try to determine what happened to the deer. We didn't receive any gunshot calls, so we don't know for sure if it happened in the city or if somebody was hunting in the interior and wounded it and then it came down. But it was pretty severely injured, so it doesn't look like it traveled far. So it looked like it happened nearby. But we're working with them to try to determine what happened. But I just want to make it clear what we saw and what we did.
Right, right.
And that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Could I just ask you on that particular incident, so if I heard you correctly, you're not positive it was a gunshot?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
But it did have a wound on its side that was consistent with a gunshot.
Okay.
And there was actually 2 wounds to the animal, but where the blood was from the animal, it looked like it happened very nearby where the animal passed away.
Okay, thanks.
And since your office is so close to the courthouse, do you know when court is coming this week?
You know what? I don't know if it's this week. I could check
Okay.
for you and let you know right away.
Some people are here on Thursday, some people are here on Fridays.
No, it's every other Friday.
For stuff.
And I just
Okay.
don't remember if it was last Friday or not.
Okay.
So
All
it's,
right.
I can let you know in 2 minutes. I'll just make a
Okay,
quick
yeah,
call.
thank you.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
Uh-huh.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, I'll be standing in for JJ tonight. As you know, we had a wind event just recently that disrupted the normal flow of everything that goes on in the harbor. Everybody did a fantastic job, and unless there's really any specific questions, we have basically tons and tons of log entries of dinghies that were saved and boats that were rescued. We had a couple 25, well, I'll start from the beginning. Saturday, early on, we started getting notifications from the Weather Service about the wind event coming. They did a marvelous job on their forecasting. And as the wind event started to materialize, we started prepping the harbor Sunday as a lot of the Jazz Tracks people were still hanging around. But as we got the word out, people were really helping us and taking their vessels to other locations. A couple people went up to Cat Harbor. Some vessels went back to the mainland. Everybody was doing their best to work with us. We cleared everybody over to the west side of the harbor. And then by Sunday evening, we started breaking down the piers and breaking down all the infrastructure. After that, we bolstered our graveyard crew, and then as the forecast predicted, Monday morning we started seeing the winds coming up. Unfortunately, the cruise ship decided to go ahead and make port here and drop their anchor. The folks that came off the cruise ship ended up ashore. I'm sure it was quite a ride on those tenders. And then subsequently, the cruise ship then had to call the passengers back. So they blew the horn and sent the signal, and that became a whole nother ordeal. And through all of this, like I say, the patrolmen were working to keep things floating, and we did at one point have a 53-foot vessel that lost its swim step, and in doing so created some holes in the boat, and the boat hobby horsing back and forth. We were able to call out Baywatch. Fire was able to support us shoreside with command. Baywatch came out. They put divers or swimmers in the water to stop the leaking vessel. We put pumps aboard, salvage pumps. We took a lot of water out of that vessel to basically protect the harbor from having another sinking vessel. The owner was on the mainland. Through all of this, there was many other small things going on, but everyone did a wonderful job. Again, specifically do want to say thank you to Baywatch Avalon. Baywatch Redondo did make a move up. Avalon Fire for their support, County Fire for coming down and helping us, the Sheriff's Department for what they were actively doing in the harbor, and the beach guards for doing the little things like making sure people didn't lose their skiffs, sending a lifeguard out. So everybody really did a great job, and I'm happy to report that.
I'm a little concerned, and you said, and then there are divers in the water.
Right. I mean, but it's what they do. They train for it, and they were able to basically stop the vessel from leaking. Otherwise, it's just an ongoing condition for us, and we don't get a break from that condition until we've been able to stop the issue at the time, and then get it into get a contractor or somebody going on and working through the insurance company to stabilize the vessel and get it into a yard on the mainland.
But, I mean, they were in that water when it was rough.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's very dangerous. The boats, the vessel's hobby horsing back and forth. And
okay, you can see why I'm concerned, just by the way he says what he says. You know, it's like I thought the thing was okay to just let the boat sink instead of risking life.
Early seasonal storm. We try to let everybody know as soon as they see northeast in the forecast, please. It's not a safe harbor here. The energy that comes into the harbor, when it hits that seawall, it's the equal energy coming back out.
Totally.
So.
No, I totally get it. That's why I wondered. Okay.
Oren, was there also a report of somebody possibly falling off the cruise ship too? Did I hear that?
Right. That was one of the things in the middle.
Of all the chaos?
We sent a patrol boat out immediately because they were treating it as a man overboard while they did their investigation. Quickly, fire was able to come in and set up command. That way I didn't have to deal with that on top of just dealing with our patrolmen. Once LA County got on scene, they relieved, Baywatch got on scene, they relieved our patrol boat, and they continued to investigate until they subsequently figured out that no one fell over. It was likely an article, something blew off the boat.
Okay. Thank you.
Oren, I have one more question for you, if you don't mind. Just because I'm not the appropriate party to explain it, but during a storm, the city floats are put out on the larger moorings.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
But yet the dinghy docks full of the smaller dinghies and boats are put essentially right in the line of fire on those moorings.
Typically not. They were put in front of the yacht club this time because it's such an early season storm that our normal keep off moorings, the ones we have slated for the docks, which are all down by the casino, we didn't have those moorings available because of basically because of Jazz Track. We have so many. We basically almost sold out the Inner Harbor this weekend, so we didn't have any moorings available. So we had to account for those moorings as vessels cleared on Sunday, and that's all we were left with was those. It's not a bad area in front of the clubs because the water gets broken up. In front of the yacht club and tuna club. The energy gets absorbed there, whereas it's in front of the seawall. It's not a good area there.
Okay.
Yeah, we were only able to move the city pier docks, like the Island Company docks, Island Navigation docks, to the 70-foot row, and even those were still somewhat centered in the harbor.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the captain's got the answer already. It took less than 2 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Friday is court date.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
And just a couple updates with the Recreation Department. This Thursday is Fall Festival, 5 to 9 on Front Street. We are expecting 52 booths this year, up from 38 last year. Lots of good food, a lot more games this year, which will be a lot of fun. Lots of fun. Live music by Hot Off the Range. I've got a professional pumpkin carver coming out. He's going to do some carving in advance. We're going to do a carving competition there on site. He's going to judge it. Really neat guy. Met him through the Pumpkin Festival in Calabasas over the years, and he does cadavers. He will put together a facial reconstruction on a body for an open viewing of a casket. So he's the real deal. They may look like jack-o'-lanterns, but he'll put together a face. But he does some really neat stuff. So come out.
I think you've spooked us.
If nothing else, come out and see that. Special Olympics, we're 5-6 weeks into practicing with 4 athletes. I've got 2 athletes coming over this Saturday from 3 to 5 for some singles matches and some skills competition at the country club. Our tumbling and dance program, session 9, we're taking registrations right now with our next session starting November 3rd. Staff's working on a boxing program right now and a breakdancing. We have a breakdancing instructor that we're just in early discussions with, so hopefully something here later in the fall or first of the year for both of those programs. And then this year, also mark your calendar for the Halloween parade, 4 o'clock on the 31st. We're going to try something a little different. We're going to do some music afterwards and have kind of a dance party with some prizes for those that want to stick around for 15, 20 minutes and do a costume judging contest. So it's a fun parade, and people just kind of disperse. So we're going to try and keep around with some activity for half hour, 45 minutes before we cut them loose for trick-or-treating.
Great.
Do you know how many food booths you have for Fall Fest?
I just saw that one. It looked like 21.
21 food booths?
Yes. Yeah.
And perhaps next year, I would like one of these years we talk about when trick-or-treating should happen. I'm a little discouraged that trick-or-treating is when it's light out. I mean, traditionally you trick-or-treat in the dark.
Right.
And I don't know what we can do about that, but it just seems kind of a shame that, I don't know, it just seems kind of a shame that people aren't walking down the streets in the dark with their kids with their flashlights and trick-or-treating, so we could actually kind of maybe scare them a little bit,
Maybe that's the reason.
I know, well.
So, like I said, we're going to try and create some activity after the parade so they just don't go right into it. And see if we
the
can
longer you can
hold
put them off, the
longer.
better. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for department heads. No, we go, oh, I'm sorry, Amanda. Oh, gosh, 2 more.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Good evening, Mayor and council and staff. We are happy to report that all 4 of our large commercial projects are going well. Zane Gray is proceeding with the sewer lateral replacement. The trailhead and bonds are looking more and more like new buildings and less like construction sites. Vons is working about 10-hour days inside the building to get the fixtures and the equipment installed. They were happy to report that the new roof did not leak during the rain over the weekend. I met with Island Company staff to discuss potential renovations for the continued operation of the laundry facility at Pebbly Beach. We also discussed a minor renovation of the Picnic Friar location and the Scoops location. Island Company staff is continuing in their efforts with Edison to bring the golf course wells into production. They're expecting to do additional test pumping in the not too distant future and have been in communication with Mr. Greenlaw and Chief Krug on how to best use the water that will result from that effort. The LA County Assessor's Office has scheduled a field trip to come out to review about a dozen project files. Rocio has been working with their staff to prepare for that visit. This review is to confirm the scope of work in the projects and whether the scope would trigger any type of adjustment in the property assessments. We are working with SCAG staff to provide the final updated information for the 2020 Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy. This week we are submitting our 3rd progress report and our first request for reimbursement for our LCP update efforts to the Coastal Commission staff. Al Warrett will be returning tomorrow night at the Planning Commission meeting to provide planning and land use entitlement training for the primary benefit of our new commissioners. And the Planning Commission will also be reviewing a proposed accessory dwelling unit ordinance, and hopefully we'll have that to you in November for adoption. And that's it. Do you have any questions for me?
That's very good. There was a question about, and I talked to you briefly about it, and you were going to look into it, the lights at Vaughn's being so bright, and at some point they need to put something over them.
The windows at the Vons are supposed to end up with a film over them to reduce some of the glare coming
Right.
out of those side windows.
Yeah, because it's,
The beacon facing windows?
The beacon
ones
facing,
facing Beacon, yeah.
the beacon facing windows, correct.
Councilman.
And also, speaking of lights, all the lights on Beacon Street going towards Pebble Beach, the new lights that Edison put up, the new poles, I noticed that, and somebody complained about them, that the newer lights that Edison put up are higher than the ones that are existing now on that street. So I don't know if that's something, yeah, the old lights are here, the new ones are up higher. So talk to somebody about Edison about it, but they say it's up to us. If we put any input on it, it's our lights, we're just renting them from them about changing them. Is there a reason for that? Was there a reason that they were put up higher than that? No? Really? Yeah. Yeah. I did notice that as you go down, you can see the old existing lights are here, the newer ones are higher. And I don't know, because we have a bigger building there, we're doing that. But it's something that we probably need to look into a little bit. And if they can change it, Edison can change it back to the same size as the other ones where they're at. Had a couple of people ask me about that.
Okay. It sounds like Mr. Greenlaw is going to follow up on that.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Matt Baker speaking on behalf of the Finance Department. Late last night, we received draft fund financials from the auditor. The numbers are more or less in line with the estimates used for the budget. There are some differences due to timing, the nature of receivables and payables. And my plan is to go over that in more detail on Friday after I have some more time with the numbers myself. The auditors did have some follow-up questions for me, which I'm going to try to address for them this week, with the goal of hopefully having a draft CAFR, so that's the full audited financials by the end of next week. Right now what they provided is just the fund financials, so it'll have the cash balance, revenues, expenditures, that sort of thing. Like I said, I hopefully will get that from them the end of next week, and my goal also for council is for by the end of the day tomorrow to have an updated draft of the budget with the new beginning balance for fiscal year 18 based on the numbers I received this morning.
Great. Any questions of finance? Okay, thank you very much. Okay. City manager report. Nothing? City attorney?
2 items. 2 weekends ago, I went to the Contract Cities Fall Conference, and I spent about 10 minutes with Assemblyman O'Donnell talking about Avalon Water, and he remains 100% committed to trying to get us whatever state funding there is available for that. The second thing is one of your budget items in the budget was a complex system for timing, at Gold Coast Health Plan, we use this, so we're going to try an experiment tonight. So I've set it for 3 minutes, and a little light comes on when there's 30 seconds left, and then 10 seconds, and then a buzzer goes off and flashes red.
Scrappy,
so,
we like it.
So, you know.
So it's not remote, though? We can't put it there and you do it from there?
No, it normally would be Ms. Moran.
Okay.
I'm the guinea pig for tonight.
Okay.
We'll also try it at the Planning Commission, and then we'll take your input on it to see.
Okay.
But again, it saves money, and we use it at Gold Coast.
Okay, perfect.
You know, and they have a $700 million budget, and it works well for them.
Great.
So,
Okay, thank
we'll see how it works here.
Okay.
And watch tonight, there'll be no public comment.
I know.
Never mind. Okay, council member reports.
All right. I have 2 items to report. The mayor and Janie Hall and I went to 2 senior high school classes and talked about registration and the importance of voting, and got out the Chromebooks and registered 4 of the 18-year-olds and pre-registered most of the 16 and 17-year-olds. Well, also, CPAC will have a booth for registration. The last day to register is the 22nd. So on the 18th, if you want some help or information, come to the booth at the Fall Fest. And then Amanda Cook and I went to a very interesting workshop on funding through Measure H, the homeless funds. It turns out that along with many other cities, Avalon did not take advantage of the fact that there were planning dollars available. And I've suggested to the city manager that maybe a listserv letter can go out soliciting those cities to sign on to a letter to go to the Board of Supervisors asking that they do another round of funding for plans, because without a plan, the available funding is so limited that it's not really of use to us.
Great, thank you. Great. Okay. Councilman Olson?
I'm happy to be back, and for the past...
Where'd you go? I'm sorry we didn't miss you.
I watched the meeting. I saw the 35-minute meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the one
No,
you
the
missed.
28-minute meeting. I saw that. I was like,
28 minutes.
Okay.
jeez. I've, for the past 6 years, served on the League of California Cities Revenue and Tax Committee and also the Community Services Committee. And this year I was appointed Vice Chair of the Community Services Committee.
Great, congratulations.
I guess I'm going for hard things. There's been some issues brought up about tenants and landlords and things, and I believe there's a handbook out there that we should probably get a hold of and put on our website that talks about tenant rights and landlord rights so that everybody plays from the same sheet there.
Right, excellent.
If we could do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, and welcome back. Councilmember.
Just a couple things real quick. Do we get any follow-up on the trash, or who's security for the Three Palms, Hollansback area? Were you able to have any communication with the island company about that? I think we talked about that a while back.
I'm sorry, what was the question,
It
Richard?
was just any follow-up on the trash. That island company had security going, and we were going to follow up on the trash that's being thrown out up at Three Palms, Hollansback area.
When you're using the word security, I'm not sure I'm understanding that part of it. I know, what do you mean by that, Richard?
The island company supposedly had hired some security people.
To patrol the areas?
To patrol the area.
No, I did not have any conversation with Randy Hurl on that.
And it was the emptying of the trash cans,
Yeah,
right?
emptying of the trash cans and who does it. And how many times.
When we went around the town to count how many trash cans we had, I know that city staff went along with Johnny Mendero, and I believe it might have just been Johnny, and they identified, these are your cans, these are our cans, so yes, they should be picking up their cans.
Because I noticed that when I was up there, somebody also mentioned it, all the trash is still being thrown down the side, which, okay, thank you. And then the other thing is, I don't know who to thank about putting that speed bump on Tremont and Descanso Street there where the valve was, I guess they buried a valve there, Bob, is that correct right there?
We did a repair.
And then shortly, are we getting a lift to bring that level up and make it, because it's a pretty good size hole in the road there.
Oh, yeah, that.
There's a bunch of them around town that we need to get around and address. Some of those are Edison's, some of those are repairs.
Okay, and that particular one is ours?
The one that we just did on Catalina, across the whole roadway.
Right here on Tremont and Descanso or Catalina Street.
Yeah, right over
Right
there.
out front here, right outside here.
Right in the middle of the road, it's this big square.
Yeah, it's about this deep.
Okay, that's a valve.
That's a
And
valve.
that's a valve
Somebody covered a
that
valve.
needs to be raised.
Right, that's what I'm
Okay,
asking.
so that, we'll get that raised. That is our saltwater valve.
Correct, okay.
And so when we had that saltwater leak, we had to uncover the valve.
Right.
Sometimes they all don't get exposed again.
Correct.
And so.
So we're just waiting to get someone to raise it, or?
Yes. We'll end up doing it with our own crews right now.
Okay.
Okay? And get that done.
That was one of my questions. My cart breaks it.
I know, it's some person on a bicycle.
Yeah.
Boom.
It's a big hole. It's a pretty big hole. Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Okay, I have a couple report outs. First of all, Grants Administration, Audra McDonald and myself traveled last week to Seattle for a sort of West Coast Ferries conference. There was a ton of really fantastic information. Audra put together some beautiful notes. Really, the discussion was in the whole first half of the day was discussing funding opportunities on the federal level, and some of the changes. Currently, the transportation funding federally is 80% federal funds, 20% local match. Unfortunately, the new presidential administration is proposing to change that to 20% federal funds, 80% local match, which could be very devastating, obviously, for transportation. So there was good information on that. There was a lot of conversation focused on private ferry operators and their integral role in providing public ferry service. There's several examples that were showcased up in the Washington area where private funders come in and build essentially a public ferry system. So that generated some discussion around public-private partnerships, and obviously how we operate here, for example. Audra will be looking further into making some connections with persons that we met, and also some of the some state and federal leadership, and looking at how we can better go after some funding opportunities. And what we did learn was that data is everything. We know that no matter what discussion we have, data. And certainly want to give a shout out to Catalina Express, because the amount of data that they do keep and hold is instrumental in what our grants administration would need in order to go after funding. And also the national, in order to even go after any national funding, you would have to provide data to the federal government, of which Catalina Express does every year. So that was really good news. And I will miss the next council meeting, and I will be attending the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association conference with Jim Lujan from the Chamber and Buddy Wilson as the cruise ship liaison for the Chamber of Commerce. The goal of the communications, I believe we have nine meetings scheduled at this time with various instrumental cruise ship representatives, and the focus is really to solidify relationships that we currently have, possibly build some new relationships. We've had lots of discussion over the last couple of years. We've had increases in wharfage, which has been difficult for the cruise ships to absorb. And we also, have looked at different funding options for, the dollar ferry back and forth with the hospital, which has created a little bit of concern. So it's really important for us to solidify those relationships, as well as make sure that Avalon and Catalina Island are on the forefront of all the other cruise operators that are out there that are not currently coming, so that if we ever have a change in who is providing visits to the island, that we maintain and have those relationships established. I also wanted to mention that this, I think it's this Saturday night, the 27th, is the Halloween in the Garden that is put on primarily by the Conservancy. However, it goes to support most nonprofits in our community. All the nonprofits are able to participate on some level or whatnot, but it's a wonderful family evening for everyone, and it is Saturday the 27th from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Botanic Gardens. So I just want to encourage everybody to participate.
Great, thank you. If it's appropriate, Denise, I received a letter from Rudy Pilch today. It was CC'd to us, and is it okay if I read it into the record? Okay. It's written to the Santa Catalina Island Conservancy, but from Rudy Pilch. Subject: Federal Fish and Wildlife, FF&W, issuing citations for feeding deer. I'm very disturbed that it has been reported that the subject agency has issued citations to Avalon residents for feeding wild deer population that have migrated into Avalon from SCI Conservancy property because of insufficient food and water source. I'm advised that recipients of these citations must appear in court, and if a judge determines they are guilty of some violation, fines up to $10,000 have been imposed or could be imposed. I'm also advised that the City of Avalon does not have any ordinance of regulating this issue, nor should they have to. This is not a city issue. These deer originate from lands owned by the Santa Catalina Island Conservancy, and if these animals are officially regulated by the Department of Fish and Wildlife, then it's my opinion that CICO and FF&W Fish and Wildlife, must work together to provide a welfare solution for these animals and immediately terminate the issuing of citations to Avalon residents. Thank you. And Rudy is here. Rudy, I didn't know if you wanted to add something, it's not the time, but you can, just not right this moment. Thank you. Okay. Again, if we could, and I know I didn't mean to catch you off guard, Denise, but the cannabis delivery service kind of timeline for, I know you probably don't have it
Did
up.
you supply your feedback on
Yes.
your thing? Then Richard, did you supply it to us yet?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Has Jim, have you done yours?
I don't think.
Okay, Jim is supposed to get one as well. Okay. The two proposals to review. And then what I understand, I believe the live scans have been done. Then there will be interviews with the applicants that we will participate in, and then whatever's next after that.
So
Okay.
roughly what kind of timeline
I don't know, that's, Denise can figure that out and let us know.
do you think?
I'm not going to give you one just off the top of my head, Richard, until I
Yeah.
get your feedback from you and from Jim, and
Okay,
then
and
we
Jim.
schedule the interviews.
Okay, thank you. Want to thank the Avalon Hospital and Clinic today for giving flu shots, and for those who also wanted TB tests. They were out there today. They were at Leo's, I think, the other day, and they're going to go back another day. So that was nice of them to sit out there and do it, and they had a lot of people come today, so thank you. On Saturday, I attended the Actively Caring for People workshop that Jessica Herzog organized with E. Scott Geller from Virginia Tech. This is a project that he started after the shootings at Virginia Tech in 1971 or something, long time ago. But anyways, it's something, and he's a psychologist and a professor at Virginia Tech. I thought for Avalon, the workshop here was very well attended, and from people I wouldn't have expected to see, so that was very nice. Parents as well as elders in the community. But, I find the project would be something that the community should get involved with, because it is basically has an immediate consequence to anybody, young and old, who does something nice for someone else. It's something that it's not just like, oh, you're a real smart kid, or, whatever. It's on the spot identifying what they did that made them actively care for someone. So, and these bracelets they all have a number on them as well. And so what happens, let's say, Leslie helps me walk across the street, and I say, thank you very much for helping me walk across the street, that was great. I would give her a bracelet. Then she can go online with this number and write down what she actively did to get this little reward. And I can see this I think with some adults it would be nice as well, but for kids I think it's great, it's instant gratification. Then when that kid gets it, he goes online and says, this is how I got this bracelet. And the goal isn't to collect as many bracelets as you can, the goal is to pass them on so as many people as possible are wearing the green bracelets. So I am going to be ordering a couple hundred of them, because I think it's worth it, as much as I'm out in the public, to just be able to kind of initiate this. I know, Dan, there's some interest with him, but I've given each of you a challenge of 2 bracelets, and because this is all I have right now. But we just see if you're walking down the street and you see something good, if you can just pass it on. And if you're interested in getting involved in it, Jessica Herzog is trying to head this up. I am supportive. I don't know how much financially I can be supportive, but I am supportive of the effort. I know the goal is also to try to get it into the businesses. So if people go into the store and a kid does something really good, and you can go, oh, thank you for not knocking all that stuff off the shelf. I don't know. They can give them one. So anyway, I'm supportive as I can be at this time with the project, and if anybody else is interested, call Jessica and perhaps call me. And that's all. Okay. Oral communication. This is an opportunity from people from the community to speak on items that are not on the agenda. You'll be limited to 3 minutes and no action will be taken. Okay. Oh boy, you get to try it out on Rudy? Oh boy, Rudy, this is the new timepiece.
What is that?
Go ahead. You got 3 minutes.
3 minutes, fine. Annie read a letter that I composed, and I have sent it off to the State Fish and Game. I've given it to Conservancy, to the city, having to do with the deer issues. There's 2 people in town that I understand have received citations from Federal Fish and Game, or State Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife.
Yes.
For feeding deer. And my understanding is that the fine for being cited could go up to $10,000. And I believe there's one person that's going to be on the docket. We'd love to find out from the sheriff.
It's Friday, for sure.
Well, the court day is Friday, but I don't know for sure whether this issue is on their agenda.
Okay.
So anyhow, it just really bothered me greatly to hear that we have a problem, and a lot of it is people see the deer. They're very compassionate. These deer are scrubby. They're going without water and food and so on.
Yeah.
And so this is just a way of saying who is really responsible. And what I'm finding out is that Fish and Game would like somebody else to accept the responsibility, really. All they're doing is just issuing the citations.
Right.
But there's no solutions. And I believe that Fish and Game and the Conservancy, which I've stated in the letter, are the 2 entities that should get together and solve the problem. And we can help. I mean, the community can help, but I don't think anybody likes to see these scrubby little deers come down in the yard, and then they'll eat up all of your good plants.
Yeah.
And those who put out a little extra water and food can get they can be charged. So anyhow, that's my concern, and I think I don't believe it's something that the city should take up.
Right.
But I do believe the Conservancy and Fish and Game are probably looking for somebody else that will buy into it.
Right. Okay, Rudy, thank you. Look at that. That was perfect. Okay. Was there a safety warning on that thing? I didn't see.
That's fine. 30 seconds. I turned the volume down.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Paula Patterson.
I wanted to be the first. Darn it. No, I'm teasing. So I just want to say that I'm not sure if it's an error or what, but the individual that received the site, it says 10/18, which is Thursday. So I don't know, but that's
okay.
So I don't know what. But the reason I'm here is that I wanted to add to the comment that Councilman Albers made that we are also, CPAC is also holding an event on Sunday, the 21st, at the Cafe Metropole. In the last midterm election, 18 to 29-year-olds, only 1 in 6 voted, and so we're trying to sort of push that a little bit harder and see if we can't get some of the younger people to get engaged in their right to vote, to make a change. And also, we'll be setting up, we'll be able to register you there online, and we'll also be able to check your registration status, because right now, I mean, some people aren't getting their ballots. They, or they go to vote and they're not on the roster. So we can help people check. And just by coming and just by participating, if we have to bribe people, we're gonna. You can be entered in a raffle and you can win prizes. So come on down if you're not sure you're registered, if your registration's correct, or if you just need to register to vote. Cafe Metropole, Sunday from 4 to 6, the 21st. Thanks.
Thank you.
Leslie Warner, 306 Whitley. I'm just excited about our new trash cans that have been ordered and that are coming, and I had a question about Pebbly Beach Road. Who is responsible for picking up all the trash along Pebbly Beach Road? And who does that trash can belong to that's out there where everybody goes to the beach? Just a question. And then adding on to a question about Island Company cleaning up 3 pumps, we had a conversation with Miguel Bravo the other day, and he had been up there with his helper cleaning up that whole area. So yay
good.
for them cleaning it up.
Miguel, that's great.
And I don't know if he did Hogsback as well, but he said it was quite a task. So that being said, I just hope that we can continue keeping our town clean and looking more beautiful. Thank you.
As Eddie Vega just went by with his Segway and full of trash.
And I want to just add to that, since it's been brought up a couple times today, because I received some photos from some of our harbor visitors that were photos down the hill, and I sent them on to the city. And, you know, it's really frustrating, but we locals need to take some responsibility. And you know, that is a major party spot for some of the younger members of our community. And there's a ton of beer cans thrown down there. It's trash from partying. And it's really, I just can't say it any other way than it's really unfair that the Island Company has to clean up after partiers that are locals. It is unfair that those of us who walk around town on a regular basis spend a majority of what we're considering our exercise time picking up other people's trash. And, you know, as a community, we all need to take responsibility. And that goes to parents of these kids who their kids are out at night. It goes to the sheriff's department who's patrolling, you know, possibly needing more patrol at some nights. It goes to seeing something, saying something. But, you know, we all need to take some responsibility, because I see, yes, it's the Island Company's property, and I'm not here to advocate for the Island Company. I'm here to say that, you know, we always say, hey, let's get the Island Company out there to clean it up, or let's get the city, let's get our guys while we're dealing with 6 other emergencies, let's get our public works crew out there picking up trash, when, you know, we've got more to do than just clean up trash. And that's where all of us as community members need to take our own responsibility. And I just feel that needs to start being said more.
Yes, I agree. Well said as well.
Jim Luchahan, Catalina Island Chamber of Commerce, jumping on board with that. It's a little premature. I was hoping to announce maybe next week or so. I've made some initial outreach to the Island Company, to the Conservancy, to some of our members. I contacted Paula at CPAC a while back. We've got a handful of Rotarians who've raised their hands saying they're interested in beginning a coordinated annual community-wide cleanup day, and in conjunction with that, some training on civic pride and taking pride in your community and the benefits of doing so. And it may tie in very well to the bracelet KC4P program. So just wanted you to know that we're paying attention and we're intending to take it on too. So thank you.
Yeah, so get the school kids involved for sure. Yes. Yeah, busy hands. Okay, I think that's it. We will move on to the consent calendar. The game started.
There are 6 items on the consent calendar this evening. The first one is minutes from 2 regular city council meetings of September 18 and October 2nd. The other one is a special city council meeting of September 20th. Second item is warrants for a total disbursement of $1,648,627.91. Item 3 is to adopt the resolution approving the annual GAN appropriations limit for fiscal year 18-19. Number 4 is to adopt the resolution accepting the fourth quarter treasurer's report for fiscal year 17-18 and the first quarter treasurer's report for fiscal year 18-19. Item 5 is to approve construction plans for emergency repairs to the Pebbly Beach lift station. Item 6 is to award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder, and that was Acorn Chairlifts, and that is for the Beacon Hill chairlift.
Yes. Council, what's your pleasure? Did you want to pull any?
I have none.
I will move staff on 1 to 5, but I'm going to 1 to 6, but I'm staying on the second minutes because I wasn't here for October 2nd.
Okay.
I would abstain as to that as well.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you. Comments? Call for the vote.
All ayes.
Great. See, and now it's item 7, so that went kind of quick.
Okay, I just want to comment on item 7. This is when Councilmember Albers reports out to us After the agenda was posted and closed, we had communication with Southern California Edison. So in the audience this evening, we have Adeline and I believe Ryan Stevenson. I never met him, so I don't know for sure. And they were going to tie that in during this item.
Great.
Yeah, we were going to allocate them some time. They want to make a presentation about their proposal, which we, as an ad hoc committee, have been meeting with other members of the community, such as the Conservancy, the Island Company, the Chamber, the camps, throughout the island, actually, on the proposed water rate increase. My understanding is the presentation they're going to make is with regard to a first phase as they envision it. Councilmember Olson and I have a meeting with our group tomorrow, so I don't have anything to report out in advance of that meeting.
True.
Take away, Adeline. If I could ask a couple of questions, though, because I saw that the DSAL report came in, and is anybody able to answer some questions about what's going on with plant number 1?
So I was asked that question, and what I've been told is that we have found through the experience of running the desal plant that it's actually more efficient to run it either plant 1 or plant 2. When you run it together in series, it's because of the water quality issue, we find that we would have to shut down one of the plant for a few days, clean it out, and then start it up again. So based on our experience, we find that just by operating that one plant, we can actually get more water than by having it run in series, in the series mode. The other issue is, there's the possibility of running it concurrently. And the challenge in that is that we need to have more seawater wells in order to do that. And so that's why back in April of last year or the year before, we had the desal feasibility report, and we talked about the fact that we do need to put in more seawater wells in order to do that. So you'll find that that's the reason why we find that it's a lot more efficient to run it that way. The other thing too, I do want to mention, it's been shared with me that an analogy of running the plant at that high speed, it's kind of like having a Ferrari and running it on high speed with like low-grade oil. So we don't necessarily want to burn through the plant. We want to make sure that it's utilized carefully and not kind of like burn through it. So I hope that kind of helps. That's my layperson's understanding of the operation.
I appreciate that, Adeline. And then my understanding is that Edison was going to be providing an updated forecast on when we anticipate hitting stage 2 and stage 3 in the event that we don't see more rain. Are we doing that on a monthly?
So we've been sharing with you the Middle Ranch reservoir level, and in it includes the projection, kind of a look ahead, and it's just, at that moment. We've also been providing the desal report numbers, and you've been getting that monthly.
Okay. You know what? I wasn't here for that meeting, and so I must have overlooked the report. Okay, great.
And I would just wonder why there are days it's not neither of them are in operation, because that's 6 or 7 acre feet by them not being operated at all. I mean, so if one's turned off, would they not then want to turn on the other one?
Well, we do have. It could be either for maintenance. So
it seems like you'd turn on the other one, though.
So
And Ryan Stevens is right behind you, too. He may even know the answer to that.
I don't think we know the answer to that. Do you?
Well, I think most of the time it's related to the seawater wells. So if you're not getting water into the plant for any number of reasons, whether they shut down or you have balloons out there, you can't run out of the plant. And so there's a number of reasons why. And we've explained this a lot of times before. There's communications where you're going to have maintenance plan in hand where you're not going to get any production. And those are examples of those situations.
Okay. I guess then, in projecting forward, we need to come up with those kind of those bloom days and those seawater well days to give us a little more accurate description of how we're going forward. But okay,
Is this on our website also? Any part of
Are we
this?
putting these on our
Are we
website?
getting these on our
Yes,
website?
this,
Okay.
the DSAL report, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for answering that.
So, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council for allowing us to come before you and make a presentation. As Denise mentioned, Ryan Stevenson is here, and he is going to share the first step in how we are realigning the water rates on the island.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor Marshall and City Council members. So we're going to talk about our, oh, do I flip this? Okay. So today we're going to talk about our approach for making rate increase filings related to mostly, in fact, exclusively our historical costs as well as updating our sales forecast. What we're going to go through first is background information. Then we're going to talk about our filing approach. We're going to show you the impact of our first phase of that approach and then next steps. And along the way, if you have any questions, please stop me and we can answer those. So just to level set, the current water rates are based on our last rate case. That was what's referred to as a 2011 GRC. That rate case was decided in 2014. The intention of that rate case was to increase rates beginning in 2011. So we filed it in 2010 using historical data. Essentially what you do is use about 5 years, 3 to 5 years of historical data. So that was from 2005 to 2009 data to project your 2011 costs. That proceeding took a lot longer than anyone had ever anticipated. It took longer than our electric GRCs, which are approximately $5 billion in costs that get reviewed for reasonableness. And here we're talking about $4 to $5 million. Where we had intended to have a rate increase in 2011, the decision was in 2014 in the midst of really the beginning part of the drought. And we didn't implement those rates until January 1, 2015, or approximately 4 years later than when they were supposed to be implemented. Those rates were based on a revenue requirement. So the authorized revenue requirement was $4.13 million. And how that gets determined is that's all reviewing all your costs for reasonableness and what ultimately the commission finds to be reasonable. We had formed a settlement with all the parties for that result. And then how you determine your rates is you just take what gets authorized in your revenue requirement and you divide it essentially by your sales. So sales is kind of an arbitrary number. It's used as part of the process for setting rates. And that was also a settled number, and that was 0.65 million gallons. And there's other allocations beyond that, but that's the big picture of how rates get set. But then there are customer allocations and things of that nature, fixed usage versus variable. And so as a result of the drought, and I think everyone is aware of this, beginning in 2014, and you can refer to the backup slide as well, and I'll probably refer to that quite a bit. Kind of go there now. Just can I go back and forth on this?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so just real quick. So this shows beginning in 2014, there was about a 20% reduction in sales, and that's when we implemented stage 2, if you recall, back in August of 2014. And you can see further that sales continued to be reduced in 2015, 2016. And then in 2017, when we kind of came out of the worst part of the drought, which was when we implemented stage 3 at in September of 2016, we had that good rain event in 16 and 17. We went back to stage 1 in, I think it was March of 2017. And you can see some sales pick up a little bit. I think folks were relieved that we had a good amount of rain, and instead of 2-minute showers, maybe they can take 3-minute showers, and obviously there's a lot of great conservation efforts done. But as a result of that, so it resulted in a significant under recovery of our authorized revenue requirement. And And so in 2008, we're still seeing sales way below 2014 levels. And so we still see a need to update the sales forecast. The drought also caused SE to incur a significant amount of incremental O&M costs, as well as capital expenditures. I think we talked about this a couple years ago. I've been in front of this body before with the desalination plant. We talked about Holland's Well. We talked about the incremental expenses as well as those lost revenues. And since 2012, we've also had some safety-related and some infrastructure replacement projects that are now in service, and we also need to recover. And so as part of this process, in 2018, we set up a stakeholder engagement process. So we reached out to a number of stakeholders, many folks here throughout the island, also the interveners that were in our case previously, formerly called now California Public Advocates Office, formerly ORA, TURN. We've met with a number of other officials as well to propose an approach to go about recovering these costs and making adjustments to our sales forecast. And we've gotten a lot of feedback on that. And as part of that feedback, we're proposing a kind of a phased-in approach, and that's what I want to go through next. So how do I go back on the slides? Okay. Got it. And now, okay, thanks. So the first phase, we're planning on making a filing in the next 3-4 weeks in late October, early November. And this filing is only to make an update to the sales forecast, which will cause a rate increase, but it's intended to recover that revenue requirement, that $4.13 million I mentioned before, that was previously authorized, which was intended to be a 2011 revenue requirement. We also plan in that filing to decouple revenue from sales. And what that means is, as part of that, we'll be setting up mechanisms so that on an annual basis, we'll provide a forecast that will set rates. And then if we go over that forecast, and so in other words, if we sell more than what we have forecasted, then there'll be a refund, because we would collect more, there'd be a refund back to customers. If we sell under that, then there's a true-up process to collect the difference in terms of what you forecasted versus what your actual was, to get back right at that authorized revenue.
So meaning that once you do your balancing act at the end, the ratepayer could get a big bill to true up? How do you true it up?
So there's a couple of mechanisms that when we submit the filing, one's referred to as the it's a WRAM, it's a water rate adjustment mechanism, and that's the process to track the difference between what your forecast sales and your actual sales.
Right.
And then you reconcile that at the end of the year. So you're either going to provide a surcharge if you under recover, and that surcharge will get collected through volumetric rates, or if you over collect, so if we collect more than the authorized revenue, which is 4.13, if we collect 4.2 or 4.3 million, right, then that delta would be given back to customers as a sur credit, and that would be a fixed sur credit.
Oh, okay.
And then there are balancing accounts to track also the difference between, because there is some variable cost associated with our utility. It actually works in reverse, like I've explained previously, where now that we're running more desal, our variable costs are greater even though we're producing less. So if you go back to that backup chart that shows how sales have dropped, our variable costs have actually increased, right, compared to when they were high, or higher, if you will, in 2010, 2011, 2012. And that's in 2011, if you recall, we had a very, very large rain event where it was overspilling in the reservoir. And so we shut down that desal plant that we had been operating over the previous years to supplement. And during those times, we were in and out of phase one. And so we didn't run it for a large portion of 2011 and 2012. So the variable costs were really low because a lot of the variable costs are driven by electricity, power costs. There's also chemicals and a few other things that are in that. But now running the desalination plant as much as we are, it takes up a lot more energy. And so there's an account to take it. There's a balancing account that tracks your authorized variable costs compared to what your actual are, and that gets part of that true-up process. There's also another mechanism that will adjust the sales forecast every year. So right now we're projecting that this year we'll have about 92.5 million in sales, and we're planning on using that projection for 2019 as a sales forecast because we still plan on being in stage 1. Stage 2, getting back to your question, that forecast currently is still August 2020. And so we see the same fundamentals right now. And if we get another good rain event, then maybe that changes. But from what we see right now, that's where we're at.
Okay.
And so the following year, we'll be able to adjust that based on latest information, where we are and what drought stage, what the future looks like, taking into account historical information as well. So there's a couple components there that keep track of all that, reconciles it. And every year there'd be a separate advice letter filing that includes all that information for review before any adjustments would be made. That rate increase is targeted for January 1, and we'll get into what those rate impacts look like. As part of our outreach, we've gotten some feedback that folks would like to see more information, some of the detailed information regarding recovering the incremental O&M cost and the capital cost and the lost revenues, which are significant. We understand that, and that's why we reached out and proposed a number of approaches as well as rate mitigation measures. And so as part of that feedback, we're proposing a step 2 advice letter where we go through kind of an administrative review process of that information before we make the filing. So we'd have further discussions. We'd provide all the detail to the island stakeholders, and they'd be able to review that, have input, and that process would take probably 5 to 6 months, we think, where a second filing could be done in Q2, Q3, depending on how that process goes. As part of that, everything's laid out here of what would be included in that. We'd also include rate design updates. We'd also propose, and we've talked about this, a boat fee to recover the incremental O&M as well as the lost revenues. And we've also talked about a rate mitigation sharing mechanism.
Could you explain that?
So in the last rate case, as part of that settlement, there's a very unique settlement, very unique. We had transferred about $8.9 million to electric ratepayers that amount was recovered over a 1-year period from electric customers. It's unique in the sense that the ratepayer advocates, ORA at the time, TURN, we all worked together on that to come up with a kind of compromised solution. So it wouldn't transfer a specific amount out of rate base like the previous settlement did. What it would do is we would take the revenue requirement from a portion of these capital expenditures, which are large, about $9.3 million that we need to recover that is in service now, serving, used and useful, serving everyone on the island. And that's just another mechanism to help with that, to help mitigate the rate increase associated with the amount of cost that we need to recover.
Okay.
That, based on our proposal, we would target a phase-in approach. So we would file it in, like I mentioned, Q2, Q3. We would seek to have the first part of that phase-in 2020, second part in 2021. And that's also why we want to do this first phase now, is so that we can have that in place in 2019, so that it's not a one-time large increase, that it's going to be a phase-in As part of that, those two steps, we're still under recovering our cost of service, significantly under recovering. So essentially, our shareholders are picking up those costs, and we're basically losing money. And so the phase 3 would then when we'd be do a full general rate case where we include all of our costs, projected costs, and that would be for 2022 test year. And so that wouldn't be filed until 2020. That case would take probably 16 months, if not a little longer, to resolve. And with a plan to increase rates beginning in 2020. And this is all part of our overall capital planning effort. So we would include capital projects that would go into service out to 2024. You should be well aware of things that we're working on, including the desal enhancements where we submitted grants, and ultimately what we end up doing there will all be part of that 2022 test year application. And this is what we're proposing, and we're waiting on some feedback from the island stakeholders on the phase 2 and phase 3 of this. Do you have any questions?
I do. Okay, so the things that were in the Prop 1 funding, the desal, the pipeline, the wells, the pipeline, and the storage, I think were 3 of the things that were in the Prop 1 grant, right? Greenland.
There's, we did ask for retroactive funding for the desal plant number 2.
Right, okay. but also for the deep, you put in for deep water wells, replacement wells.
And so then the desal enhancements are the seawater wells, also the pipeline up to Wrigley, the storage, and there's a few other components relational to those.
Right.
Those are the 2 big components.
Yeah, because that would be the storage. Okay, so question. So I know we haven't heard, but let's say those aren't funded, but those seem to be priority of Edison and some of the other people in this room and in this city. If that money doesn't come through, and you still think those are viable unless you come up with an alternative, that's when you're going to be looking at phase 3. So we're not looking at anything until 2022.
So let me
fix the problem.
Make sure I'm clear on this. So the desal enhancements with the new desal, the seawater wells, as well as to pump that water up to Wrigley, that estimate I think was around $12 million. Right. I think all of us understand the grant process, and we're hoping to get 50%. We've requested 100%. We don't know if we'll get any percentage. Right. The more percentage that we get, I think the stronger that SC management will look at that and move forward with both components of that, the seawater wells and the pumping it up to Wrigley.
Right.
To the extent that we don't get, or we get 50% or less, management's going to have to make some decisions on, do we go forward in spending an additional $6 million, $8 million, $9 million, $12 million, or are there priorities within those smaller projects that we can do that can still supplement our water resources on the island, and be able to have a process and a plan to do it over a longer period of time, so that we can recover those costs.
Okay, and again, I'm going to sound like a complete jerk, but I'm not really concerned about Edison recovering their costs. I'm concerned about us having a sustainable water supply. And so we find out you're not getting that money, or you decide, okay, we don't want to spend 50%. Where are we in our sustainable water supply coming up with little teeny, I just don't know what you all are thinking, because I'm pretty optimistic, but I'm not real optimistic right at this point when it comes to this and Edison being able to solve our problems so we don't end up like this again, because I think the biggest problem that I have is that whole thing about we save water and you get paid for not selling it. That is a booger. That is so hard to swallow, literally, because we're all doing our damnedest, and I just had to say it because I'm very frustrated, and
we've heard it many times.
I know, but I don't hear a solution either.
Like I kind of alluded to before, when we go and seek a rate increase, and we put together what's referred to as revenue requirements, it's our cost of service. So what are our costs to serve everyone? And those costs for Catalina are largely fixed. And so whether we sell a gallon of water or 100 million gallons of water, those costs are going to be there.
I get it.
And so what gets looked at and reviewed and challenged and questioned for reasonableness is that cost of service. What is that cost of service? The sales amount that determines the rates, it's really it's just a math calculation. That's all it is. And so you can say, well, we're going to sell 120 million. Well, we're going to sell 150. We're going to sell 80 million. That just then you just divide those two to essentially get your rates. And there are other components of rate design that are a little more complex of how you allocate where you're going to collect that revenue from. You can collect it from residential, commercial. What are you going to collect from the fixed service versus volumetric? What are your tiers? How do you promote those types of conservation? So it's just a mathematical calculation. That's all it is in terms of your sales. The cost of service is what we need to collect regardless of what we sell. And so I mentioned that as part of this decoupling mechanism, we will track and adjust for those variable costs. In a typical water utility on the mainland where they buy water, and so they sell less, then their costs go down because they don't have to buy water. So our works in the opposite. If we use less, and I think the new normal is we're going to be operating desal on a regular basis as opposed to in the past where it's more supplemental, even though it's a more expensive resource. I do think there will be occasions, assuming if we do get a lot of rain and the reservoir's filled up and it's overspilling, those desal plants can be shut down. Right.
But not for too long, because then you have to put all this millions of dollars to get them back online.
Of course.
Right.
And there'll be levels at which we'll need to, but on a new normal, we're going to be operating those. And so it's more expensive, the variable costs, but we'll be tracking that and making adjustments for that. It just works in reverse in our situation. I don't know if that answers your question. I know it's a hard thing to understand.
But you know what? It's your situation, our situation. It's not the we situation that bothers me. I don't hear the we, and we are all in this together. And but I know you all are working in that we situation when you have your water meeting. So I trust in that. But I am frustrated, and I'm just frustrated, and we are happy you are here, Brian, and we're happy that you can take this. I really appreciate this because I don't want to close the doors.
We understand how we've heard that feedback, and it's for someone like me who does this for a living, and I see it all the time, and I know it's state policy on the decoupling and how that works, and it's in the Commission's water action plan, and in their decisions, they're ordering utilities to go do this. It's second nature to me, but I understand your point and the arguments I've heard from, in fact, probably everyone up here. Any other questions on, we're going to move forward with phase one. It's to update the sales forecast. There will be an increase in rates. We'll get into that in a second. But back just to collect the authorized revenue that was authorized from a 2011 perspective. So what this shows is we picked out 3 customer classes. These are our largest number of meters in each of these classes. It's the 5/8-inch residential class, the 5/8-inch residential care, and the 5/8-inch commercial. It represents about 72% of the meters out there. So your more average user. There are users that have larger meters and they use a lot more water, even on the residential side. And you have the 1-inch customers, the 2-inch, 1.5-inch customers. And for example, the 2-inch commercial, there's a lot less, not necessarily a lot, but there's significantly less of them, and they use a lot of water. And so I can talk about those impacts as well. So what we have here for your residential customer, and there's about 1,100 of the approximately 2,000 customers in this class. What they're currently paying on average is about $70. What was authorized in 2000 as a 2011 GRC was $87, and this is on a per month basis. So based on just that sales forecast adjustment, and we do plan on making a rate design update that's based on the rate design principle that how you allocate revenue to be recovered from residential and how you allocate to be recovered from commercial should be based on usage. So, and I'll get into that in a second. And so this represents an 8% increase from current, and it's actually a reduction from what was authorized. Your residential care, on average, even though they use more water than your average residential customer, their bill is still less. And so they're currently paying on average $63. What was authorized was $76, and what this first advice letter will increase it to on average is $68. And that's a 9%, roughly 9% increase. Your commercial, currently paying about, this is your small commercial, so more of your mom and pops, smaller usage, and where the most commercial customers are in this category as well. Currently paying about $130 a month. What was authorized was $167, and what the increase will be, they'll go up to $168, which is about a 29% increase, if I got my math right. Someone could probably do that. Yeah. So the distribution is different from what was authorized, and there's one main reason for this. I can go to that last chart. So you see the blue from 2010 and the orange are about 50-50 in terms of residential customers use about 50% of the water, commercial customers use about 50% of the water. And as part of our rate design settlement, and so the principle in the rate design from the 2011 GRC was that we should allocate revenue based on how much those classes are using. So if residential is using, I think here it was it 49%, and commercial is using 51%, then we should recover 49% of the revenue, the authorized revenue from residential, and we should cover 51% of the authorized revenue from non-residential, or essentially commercial irrigation. And so that's what we did in the 2011 GRC. And what's interesting about that is the residential, the proposed increase for residential was from what they were currently paying at that time was about 29%. And the proposed increase for commercial compared to what they were paying at that time was actually negative 2%. So they were actually going to get a reduction because of that rate design change. And so if you look at 15, 16, 17, even 2014, you see that residential is using now only about 40% of the water, and commercial is using approximately 60%. And it's not that commercial hasn't done a good job in conserving, because they have, just like the residential customers. But you look at that line that cuts across, you can see the visitors have significantly increased since 2010. You're right, it's gone up over 50%. And I don't know where the figures are now, if they're approaching 1 million. But that's a good indicator that one of the reasons likely that commercial is using significantly more now than what they did in the past is obviously the conservation-minded behavior that folks on the island have shown, but also that increase in visitors that's driving up that commercial use. And so when we, as part of this first advice letter filing, going back to those average bills, that's why it's a greater impact on commercial than it is on the residential and the residential care. Are there any questions on those impacts? There would be, so it's some of the larger meter customers, they will see a larger rate increase impact. And these are folks that are customers that use a lot of water. And but theirs could be up to, I think the commercial could be up to about 38% for the largest users. And for residential, the largest users, which are very, very few, could be up to 19%. The residential care, they may have one or two on some of the larger, but the largest increase is part of that class, that 9% that I mentioned. It won't go any higher than that for residential care. Any questions?
Leslie Warner, come on up to the mic, please.
Leslie Warner. Ryan, would you please remind me if vacation rentals are commercial or residential as they're...
Residential.
Are they classed separately? Because basically they're just mini hotels, right? So they would be commercial in my mind. So just curious.
It's a good question. I believe that, and I could be mistaken, so we may need to go back and check on this. But if they're residential homes, then they'll be classed as residential. One of the things is that we've talked about in our outreach as part of the bigger picture in terms of all the other costs and revenues that we need to recover. We talked about making some other rate design changes. So we've discussed increasing the care percentage. We've discussed increasing the fixed, how much we recover on the fixed versus the volumetric. One of the things that we talked about was, to Leslie's point, was what we've seen is some of these vacation rentals, they use very little water because they may be there just 4 weeks out of the year. Or they may, 2 months out of the year and, a few weeks here, a few weeks there. And so if you look at it where 90+% of our costs are fixed, yet we're only recovering 30% of our revenue through the fixed, it may make sense to increase that percentage to collect more from those rental properties. It also, we talked about looking into trying to figure that one out a little bit more, and at the time we didn't think that we could get good information on who's a rental property and who's not, and there could be some gaming to that. But I believe it's residential, but it's something that we have considered in the future phase 2 filing to try to accommodate for that and try to collect more revenue from that subset of customers, if you will.
Yeah, just that comparison would be good, because the houses I know that live next to me, when they have 8 and 10 people in them for 5-6 months out of the year, most of our families don't have 8 and 10 people in their homes, and most of them aren't showering every day. So it would be interesting to compare, just a spot check analysis.
If they have large use, or then they're going to be paying more. Because of how the rates are designed, where we're putting a small amount through fixed and most of it's through volumetric. So they would be paying more. It's the ones that concerned us was, and I don't know how many vacation rentals there are, how many folks come over here as a vacation home, yet they may rent it out. I'm not sure how that all works. We know there's quite a few from what we hear and understand, but a lot of those don't use a lot of water because they're not using that residence a lot, and so their contribution towards the revenue is very small when it should be probably more.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Hopefully that answers your question. We'll look into that too. I'm pretty certain they're residential.
They are.
I mean, obviously those that are commercial, hotels, they're all commercial.
Right.
Any other questions on the average bills? Okay. Don't want to stand in your way for the Dodger game or anything, so I'll try to move through this. I don't know if anyone knows the score yet.
Too late.
I know, sorry.
It's 1-0 Dodgers.
So here's what we're going to be working on over the next several weeks. So we will be meeting with the Water Division. We're going to review our Phase 1 advice letter for the sales forecast update and decoupling. We'll also review the public notice prior to filing. So anytime we make a rate increase filing, we have to notice the public. We plan to file in late October, maybe more likely early November. We're currently reviewing our advice letter now, and so there could be some minor changes as we go through that review process. And maybe we hear some feedback from the Water Division on changes we need to make as well. That's also a possibility. We will provide public notice once we file the proposed rate increase. We do plan to continue to work with all the island stakeholders on our proposed Phase 2 advice letter process and to recover, which is really just the historical cost. And we'll continue working towards filing that in Q2, Q3. We're looking to get support for that process from the island stakeholders, and we ask for the support for the council for that second advice letter, and then in the future we would do that larger general rate case. Any questions on next steps?
No. Just one bit of clarification, Brian. So the meter charge accounts for 30% of your revenue?
Say that again?
The meter charge?
Yeah, so we collect, so for example, at 4.13, which is, and this is theoretical, so we're not collecting that now. We're only collecting a little, we think we might collect a little over $3 million this year, but over the years where it was low, it was in the $2 million. So that 4.13 gets taken and we allocate 30% to the fixed service charge, and there's, based on the meter size, there's a different fixed service charge. But you design all, and based on the number of meters you have in each of those classes, and so you design it so that you're collecting 30% of that 4.13 million through the fixed service charge. Then, and of course, you separate that by residential, commercial first, so there's a couple layers to that, and then 70% is recovered through the volumetric. And there you have different summer rates, higher summer rates than winter rates, because most of the tourism comes over the summer. Felt that the commercial businesses, that's when they're picking up, and it'd be better to charge more when more revenue is coming in the door versus making it the same rate throughout. And so there's very seasonal fluctuations. And then we have 3 tiers for residential and all the residential classes. We have actually just 1 tier for commercial because of the types of commercial entities that use a lot of water. And so that was all part of that settlement discussion in the last rate case and how those rates were designed.
So the only thing you're changing this is the 60-40 split between.
Yeah, because that was a rate design principle. So it wasn't the the 30/70 was more of a there's not a principle behind. Well, how do you determine that? Well, it's just here's guidance from commission and here's some examples, and so you just kind of land on a place. But the allocation was a principle that we should collect revenue from the different classes based on how much they use. And so we're just updating based on current data.
Okay.
And so we would continue to do that. And then all this, we'll look at it, some of those rate design changes that we talked about as part of that second advice letter to make further changes and have that input, from the island stakeholders on any additional changes. We've talked about increasing the fix, so, agreeable, not agreeable, at what level. We talked about increasing the care percentage, which I think everyone supported. So there are some things like that that we would continue to work on.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anything else?
Oh. Yes.
So I was just wondering if you know when the grant information will come through as to who's getting those grants, timeline. And not this slide, but the other slide, when I looked at it, it looks like we can expect rate increases for the next 6 years. Yeah, that one.
That one.
Yep. On the first question, we would like to know when the grants are going to be awarded to. It's been delayed several times. We do have folks, not myself, that follow that on a regular basis. I don't know the latest. I just know that we don't know yet. And we're really wanting to find out as soon as possible. That will help inform how we move forward on some of these projects and allow us to actually move forward and execute them if we can do that. And I'm glad you pointed it out. So, yes, the first advice letter filing is to target a rate increase 2019. The second one, assuming we get support for that, and we would target a phase-in for 2020 and 2021, and then we would target a full general rate case test year. In a typical general rate case, and you may know this through our electric rate cases, you increase rates for the test year, but then there are what they call 2 attrition years. And so it's a 3-year cycle. And what we want to do is we want to get on a 3-year cycle. So thereafter, we want to be able to be on a 3-year cycle, similar to how we do our electric rate case filings. And that's the objective. Hopefully we can get there. It's a long way to go. There's a lot of work to do. These things are not easy to put together. But yes, to answer your question, we would, all those, theoretically, we would see rate increases in each of those years.
Sure, Paula, come on up.
So this is a big catch-22. I think, Mayor Marshall, this is what you're saying. We're asked to use less water, but because they aren't able to recoup the costs involved, we have to pay more, though we're asked to use less. So that is a really confusing situation for most of us, but all of this has been so confusing from the get-go because I'm sure that Edison regrets ever getting involved in our island at this point because they can't make it work. And it has been an absolute, I've listened to years about drilling saltwater wells. I've listened to moving water to save up to making a pipeline so that we can hold water. I've heard about how much everything is supposed to produce and nothing happens, and it's all tied to the reservoir, what our lives are. And I don't understand how no investment is ever made by Edison save for grant money that's been applied for to make any of these things happen. That I don't understand. And then there is never anything said. I'm sure it's expensive to make things happen here, especially when you're using desal and diesel generators to initiate power on this island. I know that other things are used that aren't as costly, and I know that's a huge investment, like that's ever going to happen. But it's just an untenable situation, and we entertain bringing more and more people to the island with less and less water, and our costs get higher and higher for both commercial and residential. So I don't know. And then I know that like 4 or 5 months ago, someone from Edison came and reported to us, and I think Edison's been on the island for, 40 years? Is that 50. What?
Since the 60s.
62. Okay. So this summer, we were all astounded when they started this series of valve replacement that shut down water and service to some of the areas of town in sequence, and that those had never been serviced in the 40 years or the whatever years they've been here. But then we all had to deal with that inconvenience. Merchants lost revenue because they couldn't have they didn't have water for the day. And, it's like, are we to blame that things haven't been maintained here the way they should have been? So anyway, that's all I have to say. It's a very frustrating situation, and I feel for you guys, and I feel for you guys. But I don't know. It's not working right now.
Ooh, you just made it. 3 seconds left.
I think there were a couple questions in there. I'm not sure I captured them all. I guess let me address one of the points, and maybe everyone here is not aware of this, but since 2000, Edison has invested $32 million of capital just in Catalina Water. Think about that. We spent $32 million of capital in Catalina Water since 2000. A number of projects that we've done, and things over here, unfortunately, they're more expensive than they are on the mainland. I think everyone realizes that you got to barge everything over. Folks have to stay here. It's just more expensive. It's lots more restrictions, especially in the interior when you're working on conservancy. Everything's within the coastal commission, so a lot of permitting, a lot of requirements. Out of that roughly approximately 32 million, we've only recovered about 19 million. Think about that. And of that 19, 8.9 million was recovered from electric customers. And so part of the difference between the 19 and the 31, 32, somewhere around there, is what we're going going to be seeking recovery for a large portion in the second advice letter, which has been approximately $9.3 million of capital, approximately $3 million on the new desalination unit, a little over $3 million on Holland's Well and the treatment system out on the west end, with $1 million gallon tank repairs. That right there is close to $9 million. There's a few others, safety related, minor infrastructure replacement, things like that. So we have invested a lot of money. To the other point where the desal or the diesel generators are expensive. So the electricity rates that everyone pays on Catalina, including Catalina water, for the electricity that we use, we pay electricity rates, it's the same rates that are on the mainland, even though it's cost 5 times as much to produce electricity here. So that's a big savings for everyone on the island, is the fact that the rates that everyone pays is system-wide rates, even though this is an isolated system, and costs about 5 times more to produce electricity than it does on the mainland. I don't know if I heard any other points there that I could address, but I'm happy to do that.
Good information. That's good. Okay, Paula, or Jenny? Oh, up to the mic.
Okay, sorry. Maybe someday we can think about smart meters here on the place. Really, I know that's just more cost, but also it would help people. Like, we're the only place left that you guys can save some money. I don't know, but smart meters would really help people monitor their own usage too. I don't know, we're the only place that doesn't have it yet.
No, we're not the only.
I don't know if there's a plan to deploy electric smart meters. At one point in time there was, but I haven't been close to that in a couple of years. I haven't heard any updates. We don't have any current plans to deploy them as part of the water infrastructure, and that's because we don't think it's a priority, where there are other priorities, especially with the source, getting more sources of water, making more interconnections. The west end's not connected to the middle ranch. We think that could be a big benefit as a reliability issue, and how much money we spent on the west end when we did have that well go bad. But we appreciate that input. It's not something that we've considered a priority in terms of smart meters on the water side, and I'm not sure where the status is on the electric side, if that where that's at. There were plans in the past. I'm not sure there are anymore, but that's something I think we can probably get an answer to.
So I have one question, and I don't know if you've been involved in the conversations, but it was with Medgar Boston from Industries with the air to water.
I have not had any discussions.
Because the facility that they wanted to put it on a model basis, and they were working with Edison and.
Was that the one with the museum?
No, this is a bigger unit.
Okay.
And it was going to be a demonstration project, but demonstration projects would go well here.
I think I've heard of it. I don't know the status.
So, typically the places have these to make electricity, but in our case, the electricity would be the byproduct. The water would be the main product.
Right.
And so there were some discussions going on. I don't know what happened to those discussions. There was something about Edison at one point said, well, we have this way that we buy power and it's competitive or whatever, but the thing is, this is a demonstration project. So I don't know who should talk to whom, because I'm really curious where that's going.
Ron probably has the best information on that.
Okay.
I do recall, maybe Adeline does.
Yes, in regards to that project, we did go out and visit the facility. At this stage, it's just in concept. And so until the company can do a little bit more, have a model of some sort, it's just there.
That's right.
Yes.
That's what I know you're
Exactly.
refreshing my memory on that as well.
It's just a concept right now.
Yeah.
And not more than what had been presented.
Okay. Okay. And then in terms of because Amanda reported on the Island Company wells that they may be going forward. So, we hear everything on the street. It's like, well, Edison really doesn't want those, or now Edison's in favor of getting those wells in and blah, blah. Can you spread it?
We are actively working with the Island Company. We don't have an agreement with them yet. The test results weren't as good as we all had hoped.
Yes.
And so that changes circumstances, and so that's all has to be reassessed, reevaluated, And, we just need to make sure that, there are protections in place if we move forward on this for existing customers. And so we're working through that now, and we expect our management to make a decision on it in the next month.
So the testing that they're going to start doing that Amanda was alluding to, is that kind of with Edison's blessing, and let's see what the test results are, or is it kind of like that? Or is it they're just doing it and there hasn't been a real communication with Edison on
we've talked with them
continue to
about
test?
that additional testing. It's, we've recommended additional testing to prove out the amount of water those wells can produce and what potentially could be allocated. And ultimately, we want to make sure that whatever we determine and is something that can be sustainable. And so additional testing is what we've recommended to help prove those initial results out. And
Right.
so my understanding is Island Company is moving forward would like to do some of that initial testing, and we're working with them to do that process.
Okay, thanks. Questions or comments from anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Looks like you make the
Thank you very much.
And don't be a
Appreciate
stranger. we like having you here. We truly do. Thank you. Adeline? And we're going to take just a couple-minute break, if that's all right. If anybody needs to break.
that they're making, that there would be an informal process of sharing information as opposed to one that's more structured, that there wouldn't be an administrative law judge as there was in the general rate case that happened before. Because the real question is, just because the number is put on the piece of paper, not only does the expenditure have to be reasonable for what was purchased, but the decision to make those improvements has to be objectively reasonable. And so we just want to make sure that if those prior expenditures are being charged to the ratepayers, that they meet the requirements of the law and that we're not being charged for things that it may have been spent, but legally they're not allowed to recover those monies from us. So I think that at least for the first phase, it's not that we've managed to get the numbers reduced, which is part of the victory of the process that we've been going through. But I think you also can all see that it is pretty complicated, and so we want to move carefully, prudentially.
And we want to get them to ask for permission before they ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing, is after the fact.
Great. Thank you, team. Okay.
Okay, item 8.
Before we begin item number 8, this is decoupled from the actual any entitlement for Vaughn's. This is just dealing with the parking plan in the area, which applies equally to all council members. This does not in any way affect any entitlement for Vaughn's, and so given that, the entire council can participate in this discussion.
Okay, so hopefully I want to facilitate so this moves right along and speed this up here tonight. So tonight we'd like to continue the discussion on the Vaughn's parking and also the second item, the Beacon-Sumner intersection improvements as we move to finalizing the Vaughn's new facility.
Okay, when he's talking Vaughn's parking, I need to leave the room.
Right, yeah.
When you're talking the street stuff, I can participate.
Okay, so I think where we're going to be talking, we're talking the intersection improvements. I will talk the Vaughn's parking lot, but there's no decision, and it's really just background.
Okay, but again, when you're talking Vaughn's parking lot, we'll have to recuse themselves. When you're talking about generally the impact on the community, they can participate.
Okay, so there's some background information at the start here in a moment after I lead off.
Okay.
And then I'll say I'm moving to that slide just to give you a couple background slides of how we got to that parking, okay?
You just tell me when I need to leave.
Okay. So I would expect this effort to take at least one more meeting before we get, a set of directions from council on what we move forward with. As such, tonight we're looking to refine the items we're looking at and then bring back the item for a more detailed discussion on November 6th. What I need is for you to give us direction on which concept you want us to include, to have more details on, and so that we're very specific with your ultimate direction that you give us, so that we can get down to those details as we actually put those improvements in the field. So that could be the next meeting, or even if it takes another meeting, just so that we're getting that right. Okay. So realize that we're talking about improvements with painted curbs on a lot of this, so any installation may be changed pretty easily, so just don't get hung up on that, because we can always go out within, after we get done getting that data set, and go make some other changes, whatever your desire is. So also for the intersection improvements, we propose installing temporary trial improvements so that they may be tested before the final improvements are installed. Okay, and we suggest that the improvements are installed and stay in for a 60-day period, and so that's so we can collect data on it, so that we're not moving all over the place. So, and all along the way, we expect to hear from the public how those improvements are working, and then evaluate those, and then we can move on tweaking those improvements. Unless there was something that was maybe we'd see as just a safety issue right off the start, then we could modify that right off the start. And hopefully what will come back and we report success with those improvements and then keep on building on that success. Okay, so this is where I go to the slide with the Vaughn's parking lot.
Okay, so during this section, we'll have
should take about
the mayor and council. Cassidy. No, it'll be because it's still regarding Vaughn's, and that Vaughn's deal is not done. It has to be built and opened before the island company it gives up the right to any Vaughn's entitlement issue.
Have fun back there.
So, here is the design that was submitted with the improvement plan. So there's 26 spaces. So if I had that wrong, reported that wrong at the last meeting when we were discussing this, 26 spaces. 3 of those are full size, as you see to the left side of the parking lot. The parking lot is at the very top there to the left-hand corner. And 2 of those full size are ADA. So they could be used for a full-size ADA, or they could be used for a golf cart ADA. And then you'll see there's 2 additional ADA spots that are on the right side there. So we have 4 potential ADA spots, and the rest are open mainly for golf carts. So as we were constructing the Vaughn's, I came to realize that the design of the driveway was not optimum. And you can see that at the top, the way it lines up with Beacon. So if you look at where the tree stump has been cut, the palm tree stump, at the very bottom of the picture, there's a white mark on, a paint mark on the curb there. Everybody see that? Okay. That is where we're proposing to put the new driveway bottom. That's where we would drive, not the part that's on an angle, the approach angle. Okay? The original driveway was proposed right at the edge of that pole. So there's a couple reasons why we changed that. See, when you look up the street and you look at that white line, it better aligns with where the traffic's actually coming down Beacon to cross across Sumner to come into the driveway. If I was at the pole, I would actually be somewhere in the sidewalk, and considering that there's also parking on Beacon, you can see why we moved that or shortened the width on that driveway throat. Okay, it went from 25 feet to 22 feet. Also consider on the mainland when they maybe the input on the design, they got a lot larger vehicles. The type of vehicles that for the most part they're going to go into this driveway are going to be smaller vehicles. Okay, so 22 foot, and that's what 22 foot in 2 11-foot lanes is on the mainland what we put into traffic calmed roads. So even with the larger size vehicles, so that helps calm the traffic through this driveway too. So that's the reason. Besides, there was the proposal to move this pole, this joint pole. And if you go up there and look at that pole, you've got all kinds of angles with all the different utilities just to move it a few feet. Okay, that's what would have been the result. And that would have been very disruptive both to the turnoff, the shutdowns for electricity, and to the traffic, okay? For very minor part of gain, very minor benefit on that. Okay. So then we go to slide 3. Here's that redesign. So you can see that we have where we've only moved it 3 feet, where it says the proposed new location, the driveway there. And you can see where it aligns up better where the traffic would come in Beacon and go down into the parking lot, okay? So you can see the arrow into the parking lot, okay? So that's all I wanted to make a note on that, just so you see as we're looking at this intersection design of how we got to where the driveway throat is. Also, I want you to note on the left side of the driveway, there's another stop bar that they proposed. So another stop in the intersection. Okay, as you see our next proposed revision, we don't have that yet. Okay, we can call everybody back in.
Well, hang on, is there any discussion on this before we bring?
I think that generally makes sense. Yes.
I just want to get you what was designed and what is going to be built now, and then what we've come up with. Okay, we're on slide 4 if you're doing that in the hard copy packet. You can't see it on your screen very well. Okay, so additionally, we analyzed potential improvements to this currently awkward intersection. I shared 4 different possibilities previous in a department head report. This was the most straightforward and cost-effective one. So it's one that we would try first. That's what I'm suggesting. So what you see here, the improvements you see, is that Vaughn's is going to build with their improvements the curb return ramp that would go across Beacon, and then to the left there of the Vaughn store, and then right across Sumner there where that green spot is, they would also build that ramp. Okay, the other ramps I intend to build when we do our ADA project with CDBG money this winter. Okay, so we have funding to do that. So all of these would be new, currently ADA accessible ramps. And so we would rebuild these. You would have 4 high-vis crosswalks. And where I noted before where you would have that additional stop bar right at the Vaughn's entrance, it's not included here. See how this operates without it. And the feature you see that's kind of the salmon color there in the middle, that's what I'm suggesting we do as an interim temporary improvement, and it's a median. And if it ever gets installed permanently, could be an elevated median with some plants or something artistic in it. But the intent of what that median is, you know, as we go through this intersection, there's a lot of movements there. There's too much pavement, kind of like the Five Corners intersection, where we have sweeping movements. And so to calm the traffic and to make it so it makes sense, so everybody has some expectations of where the different modes of transportation are going to operate. So if you're a vehicle that's on Beacon and you're going to take a right turn on Sumner, you've got to take a right turn, and then you don't get to do that sweeping turn that almost puts you into the oncoming lane of Beacon Street right now. You would have to go down and then line up to where you would turn, and it would be a slower turn. Okay? All of this will be modeled to make sure that every vehicle that we use on this island will fit and not have to mount over that median.
I'm thinking about the fire trucks turning up.
So is there any questions? Pretty simple design, but what we would roll out, if we rolled out a 60-day test, is rubber parking stops. You know, so the parking stops are usually 4 to 5 feet long, and I've used those in other cities before where we just line them up and pin them down to the road, and then we put something in the middle to kind of spruce it up, and it's very low cost. It gives people the sense of what it's going to be like, and then we test it out.
Parking stops, I'm sorry, I don't know that.
So like a parking bumper that's usually concrete, but they're made out of rubber.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we just installed some on East Whitley along the fence there, okay? They can be installed with our own crews. We could do this project within a day to get that median in. If you want to see how it would operate right now, we have put paint dots, white paint dots in the road right now. And you can go out and watch how the traffic is turning over those paint dots. And you want to go to the outside extent of those paint dots because they're painted at 2 foot and then 4 foot. So it's the outside dots. And that's where approximately this median would be.
The fire truck and the Vaughn's truck?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you think right now they could do that without even testing? I mean, you're kind of...
We have software, and we also can test it also out in the field.
Yeah,
but
so it looks like
we have software that you'll see at the latest, the back end slide. We can model what a vehicle's turning movements are. Right on this drawing. Yes.
So the one crosswalk that I have a question about, and this may be a line of sight issue, I don't know, but the one on Sumner to the left is not exactly on the corner. And I'm wondering if a car is going kind of north on Sumner, they may not be able to see the car on Beacon. Is there a reason why that crosswalk is not moved toward the corner more?
You put the stop sign up to the corner.
Yeah, I mean, because I just think the line of sight is going to be better and safer. Yes, it would involve the moving of the existing thing, but I just think it lines up better, like the one on Beacon and Sumner. Just my
I agree.
Public liability.
What we were trying to do, like in the first take here, was use the existing features out there. And
there's already ramps there?
Yeah, there's actually a ramp on the other side.
Yeah.
And so we were trying to roll that out with the existing feature. But yeah, we can change that. and advance that up. And that does make sense. Okay? Any other questions on that? You can see that we removed all of the parking in the intersection. And our thoughts are, it's a chaotic enough intersection as it is, and we don't want to add parking to that. Okay?
Right.
So you see that parking being removed there on that upper portion.
All the red.
Yeah. Okay. Most of around the curb returns, though, there's already been parking removed because that's, again, the site distance. It's parking's not on where the curb returns are.
And let me ask, on Beacon Street, like if on your way to Catalina, you're saying prohibit parking for 30 feet. Right now, there's no parking there at all. And now are you saying to park on that side of Beacon Street? On the upper picture of Beacon Street?
So they're going up?
By Aunt Tina's house.
So the reason that it's prohibited parking there, and you'll see that as we get to the next slide when we start talking about parking, mainly this was just drilling down on the intersection improvements.
Okay. Yeah.
This was for the sight distance as we come across that crosswalk there.
Okay.
And just like we did Vaughn's at Metropole, you saw when we opened that up what a huge difference that made. When the driver can see the ped and the ped can see the driver, we're going to make better decisions.
Good point.
Okay, so that's what that concept is. Okay, I think I made all the points I wanted to on that. So yeah, bring order to the chaotic system. So is there direction at what you want us to look at further on this intersection? Or do you want us to just bring specifics back to you, a little more detail this next meeting, and then ask you whether you want to go with that? I mean, that's what tonight, it's really no decisions. I just want direction so I can come back this next meeting and is there some other details you want to look at?
Well, I think the first I think my opinion is that little median. I think you ought to test that first day, number one, to see if that works. Because if that doesn't work, then it's back to the drawing board on maybe on other stuff. But I don't know, Council, what do you think?
That's going to be close to the fire truck going out here. So usually, as you come down from that, remember driving truck 3,
right,
you have to swing a little out towards Beacon, towards the beach side, and swing to make that turn. That's cutting it pretty short.
Okay, so I'll put the fire truck template in with auto turn here, and you'll see the wheel path. So I'll bring that in. Okay? And I also can take the fire truck and we can test it.
Well, I think that, yes.
I've driven it a bunch of times, and I really don't remember cutting it that short. I remember swinging out towards Beacon to go up Sumner a little bit. So as you're coming down Beacon from the community church, you don't hug the right-hand side. You have to go up to the middle or the other side to make that turn.
In order to make that turn.
In order to make that. That was just my experience.
Okay.
But you might ask the chief. He might be able to help you out there.
So Bob and I had meetings and talked about this. The ladder truck is the largest piece of apparatus that we have. It's essentially a 12 by 12 box. And all the stuff that Bob's talking about putting in is not only made for us to drive over it when we need to, but also for the future. In the future, what if a large crane or something needed to be brought in? So any of the stuff that's in place can be driven over, and it won't impede fire apparatus or heavy equipment, and it won't be damaged by that equipment that's being driven over it.
So we'll look at, you remember we have the temporary design, and then we refine that too, but we also model it, okay? So all of those are good points. That's what I want to hear tonight.
And then flatbeds too that are going out to Hamilton with equipment on it and everything. We'll have to...
Concrete trucks
and stuff swing out like that.
Okay. And we just make sure that we're also, if there's routing a certain way or not, whether it goes up Tremont, Sumner, and back down. Okay, whether it can make this S-turn or not. So we'll model those, okay? Okay?
So Bob, as you're contemplating this, the person that makes a right-hand turn onto Sumner from Beacon, near this median, is going to have the right-of-way, and the people at the stop signs have to yield until they complete their turn?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're at a stop sign, so they're...
Right.
Yeah. And that whole frontage there is all at... Vaughn's is all real low-level landscaping, so there should be great sight distance, so you can really click your way through all the conflicts here. What I'm trying to do is give it order to that chaotic pattern right now. You don't know which path they're going to take, and that's why I'm trying to put these the crosswalks, the high-vis crosswalks. And you can see that we're trying to eliminate the crossing on Beacon to the store, on the other side of Beacon where you go across
Right.
Sumner there. We only have one crossing. So there may be something that we put hard along that face of that crosswalk to prohibit. So it'd be mainly for the people up in that quadrant up there that would have to cross the street. But it would make it safer for everybody in the community.
Leaving the parking lot.
And would the parking lot, as you're leaving the Vaughn's parking lot, that entranceway onto the street doesn't have a crosswalk? Would that have a crosswalk to indicate a right-of-way for someone who's walking down Sumner Street?
It'll look like a sidewalk is actually what it'll be.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be all concrete across.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
I'm not sure I'm reading it right, but if I'm coming out of the Vaughn's parking lot, do I have clear vision over to Beacon if I want to go left onto Sumner and somebody's on Beacon? Can we both see each other?
Yes. Yeah, it's wide open. It's low-level landscaping, so somebody would be less than 30 feet tall, and probably less than that. Okay? There's a big planters out there. If you go back to that proposed picture, like on slide 3, of what we're doing with the driveway. Okay.
We just put one more question again. And this, tell me again how the stop sign on Beacon and the stop sign on Sumner coming down from the school, aren't these people, so, okay, because,
There's
okay.
already stop signs in both those spots now.
I know. So I guess what I'm saying, and these people over here just keep on going, and these people get stuck up on Beacon. But with this median thing, that should allow them to go better without them being, because you know how we get backed up on Beacon Street all the time.
So this is really the existing intersection, but we've made some improvements in telling peds where to go. We're restricting the sweeping turns. But otherwise, without putting that other stop in by Vaughn's, it's just the way we're using it now. And it's chaotic, but if we try to make it less chaotic and try to designate, that's a complete streets thing, is how you designate spaces for everybody to operate. Just try this first, is what we're saying.
Oh, I agree.
We've already got everybody trained. We're just making a betterment here.
No, I agree. Okay.
I would say it's safe to say that it's full-on Thunderdome on that intersection right now, and it's so frustrating. And I think it was probably 3 years ago or so, I had Public Works put 4-way stops on the stop signs, and that did absolutely nothing because there was no marketing campaign for it. But that is the most dangerous intersection in town because people are just rolling through, cutting corners, no indicators, things like that. Is it possible that you can do some sort of temporary painting for those crosswalks during this 60 days? Or would that, to at least see how the pedestrian traffic flows?
Yeah, we lay it out just like we did, at the restrooms out there at Casino Way. And we put them with a light coat of paint so you could see it and go from there. Okay, I'm just trying to roll out the first step. And then we say, no, that doesn't work, then we start investing money into this. There's all kinds of things you can do with the curb returns, start pinching stuff down. We can put, all the way up to building mini roundabouts, which is expensive. So we're starting with a low level and say, hey, let's try this, okay? Okay, let's move on. Okay, so I think I have direction on the intersection.
Move the crosswalk.
Move that crosswalk up,
The public one to add in. Okay, so let's go to the parking now. Okay, it's not as big as I wanted it when it's up there in the slide. But, okay, so now let's discuss the on-street parking in the near vicinity of Vaughn's, okay? And that we need to keep that important. It's in the near vicinity of Vaughn's, the Vaughn's impacts, because we have lots to do with other parking, but just focus on that right now and try to get that done and something installed and then get some data points over 60 days and see how that works. So here's a very preliminary crayon level, what I call it, proposal to install 1-hour parking in the near areas to Vaughn's. Okay, you can see lots of red out there. Some of those are existing red, like the red at the sheriff's station. We have the red that's at the corners for sight distance, you know, that you saw marked up on the plan for the intersection of Vons. The red that's there's no red, but there's no parking because of the narrowness of Beacon Street. And there also is red on Catalina as you head toward, you know, the north or the waterfront. And that's already existing because there's a fire hydrant, and that's for sight distance there. The pieces of red that are getting added was that piece of red at the intersection that we talked, and we just saw why we said we didn't want no parking in the intersection. And then additionally, potentially, when we talk to Avalon Freight Services, how they're going to be delivering the Vons truck, and you'll see this on the next slide here, is that when Vons proposed this, you can see that the trucks were going to go up Beacon and then back in. Right now, when I talk to Avalon Freight Service, even with the scaffolding that's in that bay, they're saying they're having an easier time going right there at Catalina if we didn't have any parking there and just sweeping right into that. It would be less time for them to be in the roadway.
So they're going to turn onto Catalina and back into the bay.
Yeah, so you can see where I've circled that. I've sketched that in. The other was the original plan. So it's the auto turn truck movements. I say that we have the ability to show you. That's what that is. That's what I mean. Okay? So
describe this truck movement again. I'm confused.
So you can see the diagram where there's, onto the left there, that's Beacon. That's vertical, up and down.
Right.
And you can see that with all those lines there, there's a truck up there in the middle by eucalyptus. All those lines represent their wheel tracking. And that's the part of the software that we can do. And it's showing, it's proving, proof of concept, that the truck could go that way and back into the loading
Which is what was originally proposed.
Yeah,
right?
what were originally proposed. Now, we're talking, I'm seeing construction happening, I'm seeing Avalon Freight Service deliver product, I'm talking to the driver, so I'm just saying it's potential.
Oh, so you're talking coming down Catalina towards the ocean.
Right. They wouldn't be stopping in the middle of Beacon,
and
everything stopped, I got stopped, and then it takes them a little while to get back up. Whereas they could pull right next to that curb and just go right in, so that it takes less time, less impact to our community.
Wait, so they're going up Catalina and backing in.
Yeah, this is from Avalon Freight Service, so I'll get
going like
that,
this and then like
working out with them and prove that concept with their trucks, okay? But I'm just saying we should consider that it's a potential, and I just wanted to bring that out, you know, so that as we're looking at parking here, it reduces that parking by about 30 feet, okay? Because there's already about 15 feet of red there, so it'd be another 3 autoette spaces that would be removed.
Wow.
On the up canyon side of Catalina?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just saying that's potential. It could be that we just do Beacon, okay? But it's something to throw into the mix. So let's go back to this. So you can see that we've taken it, and I haven't considered anything down by the waterfront yet, and I can bring that back. But all of that, I was out there today trying to get all those detailing little pieces that are different that maybe need to be changed, because I saw, you know, it's not real efficient how some of that parking's happening anyway. And I'll bring that back for discussion if that's what you want. So we would go all the way to the pavers down there on Sumner and Catalina. And that's going to change too as Vons Express goes away. But I did pull the concept so that at the front entrance of the store, we said, this go up Sumner 150 feet toward the 300 block here. And we said, hey, this go up 100 feet on Catalina toward the 300 block. That's the area of impact. And then try that with 1 hour green. And then the suggestion is that the residents on that street would get a specific permit for just their street in their block, that they would be exempt from that 1 hour. I talked to our code enforcement, they said that would be fine. I talked to, you know, our vehicle registration Officer Dudley, and he was fine. Those would be all simple things for us.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So you live on Catalina. You're used to having parking like everybody else in town has in front of your house. And now it's 1 hour, so that when you get home at 5 o'clock, everybody that's doing the typical rush to the grocery store at 5 o'clock has taken up all the parking spaces. So I actually would favor a plan that would have permit parking only on the one side of Catalina, the housing side, and green only on the other side. And part of the reason is there was a whole traffic study done. There was an environmental impact report required for this project. And I don't think it's the residents' fault if that traffic study didn't accurately predict what the traffic was going to be. And I think that those residents, like every other resident, deserves to expect that there's going to be a place to park your vehicle when you get home from work. So that...
And that, we can look at that alternative versus the other one, and the reason
and I would propose the same thing for Sumner, that you've got residential on the Catalina Lodge side, and you do just the green on the Vaughn side of Sumner.
So, kind of rewinding to what I said, to try something for 60 days, so I was always trying the simplest solution for the 60 days, and if that didn't work, because I just didn't want to make it so complicated, it's like, we've got day of the week sweep, got day of the, I've got this on this side, so I was just trying to keep it to something simple, like, our code enforcement knew exactly, no matter what, that we're not going to, those people are exempt.
Well, that may sound elegant and simple, but it still screws the people who live on that street.
Yeah, I was just trying to,
I get why this had some attractive, I'm just expressing that I don't think that that's the appropriate solution here.
And I'm not sure why we have the 1 hour on Beacon and the 1 hour on Upper or Lower Catalina and Sumner.
Okay, so the 1 hour uphill on Beacon?
Yeah.
Because it was at close proximity, within 150 feet of the frontage, and as, say that somebody was living up in the hills and they did drive their vehicle or bringing their family down, that they would, and then also it would restrict some of the people that would be parking longer term because of employment that on that street, and just keep those people moving, because I think, not that I want to get out too far right now, but some of the parking around the old Bond store that's diagonal right now, that can be our longer term employment parking if they need to come down and pick
what it is now.
Yeah. So, I mean, because right now it's just green for a long ways, and so that you need to walk a block, 2 blocks. Hopefully you walk just from your house, but if you are going to park, you would have that long-term parking, which we don't have probably the needs that we have now with the Vaughns being there. So that'd be kind of like the next step that we would move, and maybe that would be before the 60 days. That's just saying that, we see that this is not being occupied, why don't we convert this to all day, non-restricted parking?
Well, so if I'm going to go to Vaughn's, let's say, and I live somewhere else, and I'm going to go to Vaughn's, and I only have an hour to park. But let's say then, nowadays, you go to Vaughn's, you go to Chet's, you go to the post office, and an hour isn't enough time. But do we imagine that people, now they go to Vaughn's, then they're going to get in their car, now they're going to drive down to go to the post office? I guess if 2 hours is a better time frame, so that maybe they will walk that extra bit instead of getting in their car and trying to drive closer.
You can set it up for whatever you want.
An hour just doesn't seem like a month.
I picked one, something that we're used to, a green 1 hour parking. But, that's what
these poor code guys are going to be riding around and just going bzzz, trying to catch up with everybody.
At the end of the day, next meeting or the meeting after that, we say, hey, try this. And so that's what we're trying to get at. Try something, and then get the data points, get the input from the residents, the rest of the public. By that time, the Bonds is open. By the time we get this implemented, get it all painted, and then when it opens, we start getting data right away. And that's going to help drive our decisions.
But on the permit, I'm sorry, Councilman, but on the permit parking, I understand, and you're working very diligently on this. I'm just concerned that January 1 comes, Vaughn's opens, we don't have permits for the people, and we've got this cluster.
So when I'm talking to Dudley, what we're going to do, especially when we're just trying this out, we're going to issue a temporary permit. And there's not that many of them. And we just go issue those because in a block, and it would be, he said that would be very easy, and he's open to doing that. And then if the system works, then we get down to developing, the final stickers or whatever that is.
But again, the timing of it, in January, you're not going to have as many people as you're going to have in July. You're going to start getting more people coming down there, and people are going to try to park there. And like Pam was saying, the residents won't be able to get to their parking spot. It's going to be taken up by somebody going to the store for an hour or two. I gotta agree with Pam on that. The residents should
Be on
have a
one
little
side.
say-so on that. That's just my opinion, and I get it. I get where you're coming from. It's something we need to try.
Yeah, I'm
and see how it
actually,
goes.
all I'm
I
trying
get
to
that.
do is facilitate whatever it is the community and you want. And so all I did was take something to throw some darts at. Like I said, this is my
I
fat
understand.
crayon sketch, and I didn't put a lot of dimensions down there because all I said is, like, what if this gives us something to start to talk about?
Right.
And that's why I'm here, is to say, what details, what data, who do you want me to talk to, and bring that information. And it may take several meetings, but at that point, it'll help you make a good decision. And it's a decision that the community has already weighed in on. And that's what I'm trying to do. And then give that commitment, hey, we're there, this is simple, it's paint. And if there's something that needs changed, then just do it. It's not like it's set in stone, you know? It's something that we need to work so that it works for our community. I'm just trying to get through the solutions here.
I would rather start minimally than as massive we're starting here from the 1 hour painting. And we got a load of 1 hour parking here. That's now open parking. And I'd rather have limited 1 hour parking and keep the open parking.
So when I got my crayons out, I just said, I've heard from all of these streets already.
Yeah.
So I went, and then I put my engineering hat on, and I said, okay, this could probably, within 100, 150 feet of the front entrance, I started having impacts, and so that's what I started with.
I mean, we're also losing the fact that there's 26 parking spaces in Vons. So not everybody's going to be parking on the street. There are going to be a few people parking in the parking lot.
26 is nothing.
We hope. Well,
We know it's nothing.
Yeah.
That is
But how many
that's
people,
absolutely a joke.
how many carts are parked at any given moment on Metropole now that are at Vons?
So that frontage there
Isn't
is
that what
like
the traffic study
14 in between the Island Company driveway and the alley, 14 somewhere in there, and then you have another probably 10. That's kind of in the flat spot of the road without going up the
But it
hill.
doesn't mean they're all going to Vons, because people are parking there 8 hours a day, which that needs to change sooner than later also.
60 days.
So just listen to what you want me to start with. I'm going to come back with something hopefully for you, and then whatever.
And it's not a decision right now.
I know.
No, I get that.
No.
We get where he's coming from.
What's the next thing you want to see is really what I want. You want to take a further look at this. You want to take a look at swapping the sides. You want to shorten up the distances. I can give you 3, 4, 5 alternatives.
So let's say if you went with Pam's concept, and let's talk about this a little bit, on Catalina and Sumner, one side for residents. Okay, I don't know how many people live on Lower, and Roberta probably knows, how many people actually live full-time on Lower Sumner. Do you know?
Lower Sumner residential vehicles, 3.
3 full-time residents.
Unless there's somebody living in the Westbrook that has a vehicle.
Okay, so there's 3 full-timers down there.
There are 3 full-time vehicles that I am aware of on my block of Sumner.
Okay.
It is filled every day with workers from downtown, hopefully, like Bob saying, those who move over from Metropole.
Right. So if you 1 hour parked it and gave 3 people permits on that street and observed those 3 people and observed that to see, even if it's 2 hour parking and only on, well, you wouldn't.
Well, at that point, you'd ask them, how are you doing? You know,
Yeah.
gave you the system. What are you, thumbs up, 1 out of 10, what is it?
I think you're not going to get a lot of feedback until you start restricting people. The minute you start restricting, that's when you're going to get your feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So by doing the 1 hour parking, that's when everybody's going to come up, right?
Yeah, well, the impact is on the residents, on Sumner, but also on Catalina. It's a little more dense in that one side of
Well,
Catalina.
then you're going to hear from me at some point on Descanso, because it goes, I know, because it's just going to go, I know.
And then we'll move over some other
Okay,
streets.
I know. So anyway, okay. Roberta, come up to the mic, please.
I have a question on the permit. We're on the corner, Sumner and Beacon. We can park on either street, so is our permit, if we get one, going to limit us to one street? Or can it be flexible where we can take a spot on Beacon?
Good question.
If we get our way, Beacon will remain open parking, so you could park anywhere you want to.
Well, on there.
Yeah, about this, I'm suggesting we erase that green and the green on Upper Catalina and Upper.
The other caveat there is you have a lot of residents, Sunny Lane and Beacon. vehicles.
Yep, that part there.
That's why we say get rid of the 1 hour parking. Yeah.
Well, and that's why you say if you have off-street parking, use it, right? That's the other thing we got to tackle.
The other question I have is with all of the Scions that are now on, are the spaces going to be large enough to accommodate them in the autoet parking? Because many of them can't fit in the autoet spaces in their apartments or condos. So
Yeah, I'll check that. You're talking about Vaughn.
And the Scions currently are not allowed to park in angled parking or that pull-in parking.
on Beacon right now, and
No.
they replace the golf carts that people have.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't replace them. Golf carts are still here.
So, yeah. So, Mayor, you bring up an interesting point, because most of the permit parking schemes that I looked at, like Long Beach, they all have an application form where you have to demonstrate that you don't have off-street parking otherwise available. So I think that that's a reasonable thing to say to somebody. We're not going to give you an on-street parking permit if you have off-street parking.
That's a really good point.
So one of the tasks that I did, I went into the database for all the vehicles, and Dudley and I pulled all those out, what's assigned to each house. And that's part, I haven't been able to dig into that detail of what's on street and what's assigned, how many vehicles are assigned to that, what's their length of their frontage. All that's a good data point. And then you put that in a heat map, you'd go, oh, these 5 houses I see are the majority of this parking here, and probably maybe some of the problems that are created by it, okay? And so it's just good information as you're looking at some of this parking. It's not hard to get at. We have all of that information. It's pretty simple. Once we create this map, this base map, like we're starting here, you can do all kinds of things with it with data.
So
sounds like you got a good toy.
When are you proposing to make these changes? Now? Or
I want them
when
to be
Vaughn's-
ready when Vaughn's opens, okay? At least that's what I'm suggesting. And so that, the day that the potential impact comes, just like any other mitigation you would put in, we're working on it. May not be the ultimate solution, but we've made the effort and we're having the conversation, and the channels of communication are open so we can listen at that point, not just wait, 6 months down the road, hey, we have this problem. No, we're working on it right now,
How much time do you need to do the painting once a final decision is made before Vaughn's opens?
So it depends on the extent of the painting. If it's that much painting there, that would probably take us maybe 3 days with a couple people. It's just a matter of working around the vehicle, but pretty, Lisa, man, she's great.
Yeah, she's great.
Getting that paint out very quick, especially if she gets out there early in the morning.
Yeah.
And do we have a proposed opening date?
There's
no.
I think it's probably earlier than later. I mean, when you walk in the store there, the boxes, the fridges, the check stands, the finishes are all pretty well intact. Jordan Construction's going to be, as soon as they finish the trailhead, they're going to be on the frontage improvements and doing the frontage improvements. And really, we need the frontage improvements to get certificate of occupancy in there, so we'll do that. So and it's going to take 3-something weeks or so, at least, to get the frontage improvements done. Size crew we got.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Does he have enough to go by based on what we've
Well,
said?
I'm just trying to get what iterations, I guess I'm hearing 3 or 4 different possibilities here.
The Vaughn's parking lot spaces, are those designed just for golf carts, or are those designed for Scions? I mean, what is the plan? That's one question. And the second one is, if you really study the residential area where you're proposing the 1-hour parking, I think you need to know how many units that is total. How many units that could possibly have a golf cart or a large vehicle on the street? And is that enough space on Catalina for all those people to be able to park when they're home,
Right.
right? If they have their permit to stay there, are you providing enough space for them? Anyway.
And then there's questions of, do you only give them a permit for one of their vehicles, not for both? There's those kinds of things too. I know there's all kinds
If you have a golf cart and a large vehicle,
I know.
why would you be denied?
Well, you could have one permit and the other one you've just got to park on some other street in front of my house.
Yeah.
In front of your house?
Like they do now.
Never mind.
There's a lot to be, this is all good though, good conversation.
This is going to be such a huge change, and I'm just thinking that when you guys decide what you want to do, that why do we have to wait for Vons to open to start training drivers and people to get used to that, because everybody's going to be with Vons, and then they have to drive a new. I mean, I'm just saying we get them in the habit in some manifestation of whatever the plan is. I don't know. That's just.
Well, if we're at next meeting and say that you gave great direction this next meeting, which I fully expect, if I get all the information there, that by November 6th, then I have that information, then I have to go out there and actually get this done, so you give us another couple of weeks to actually get it done.
I actually think you have direction with respect to the first concept with the crosswalks.
Right.
Right.
So you can start on that.
Yes.
Do we have some consensus that maybe it's overkill to bring the green paint up Sumner and Catalina?
I agree.
Wait, Sumner all the way up Catalina to 1 hour?
No, on the Up Canyon side. On the
Sumner.
Up Canyon side of Beacon on Sumner and Catalina.
I think that the Catalina might be, but honestly, Sumner, that first 150 feet is so close to the entrance. This is why I'm all in favor of testing and trying, because I do not believe Catalina is going to be as impacted as Catalina residents think that they are. And so because I don't visualize that, I don't think that residents are going to park on Catalina and walk all the way a block to go to the store. I believe that Sumner is going to be a nightmare. So I would say Catalina, the upper part of Catalina, maybe not, but Sumner, I think should be, that first 150 or more feet should be.
Okay, and also moving forward, but maybe I'm going too far forward, is we say we want to make this a biking and pedestrian community. If we started on like Catalina with that 1 hour parking, then people could walk and bikes would be safer and whatever, but I don't know if we phase that or we just, and I'm going down Catalina towards the pier, and then the going up, we have no choice on the going up because you're saying we could probably do without the green on the going up Catalina because you don't think it's going to be impactful?
I believe if we're talking about, I believe that this, I like the idea of the permit for Catalina for the residents that live there, and then the 1 hour parking.
Mm-hmm.
But for those that don't live there, but we all know that most of the people who are parking on Catalina now, that is already impacted, and they're parking there because they're parking to work for the day down somewhere in town. So that is not an impact from Vons, that's an impact from people driving down and parking for the day.
Right.
What's going to happen when we paint that as 1 hour is that's going to force all of those people who are already parking over to Lower Descanso, which is already extremely impacted.
So, hopefully we can get them over to Metropole. That's the education piece.
Well, that's the education and the public relations part of it is, moving people over to Metropole. But this to me is going to be significantly impacted, as well as Sumner. But this is the only piece that, when you were saying the upper parts of those streets, I don't have much of an opinion on that, but definitely on
So,
that.
and then there's that one piece, as we move toward the pavers, there's that one piece of Catalina that I need to talk with the island company, and what the information I have is that was painted a long time ago with the vehicles that needed to sweep into the travel plaza, and they don't use those vehicles anymore, and that doesn't need to be red for that distance, and that distance is, you could probably gain 55 auto ed spots, so there's some low-hanging fruit that once we get a fish in here and look at some of these things, we may even gain some spots in some of this that's close down there, and maybe that could help mitigate. That would be the piece that mitigates some of that parking there,
And you've got Amanda and you've got Janny Hall right there.
My 2 cents. I think one of the benefits of timing all the green curb changes to the opening of Vons was the anticipation that your customers that currently park on Metropole are now going to be coming over to Sumner. And so all those spaces that are occupied by customers on Metropole will be open. So you'd be this automatic shift of where the customers are going. So I agree that I think we want to do things that are easy, low-hanging fruit, but maybe we start with where we know the impacts are going to be the greatest, which are Sumner and the residents on Sumner and Catalina. And then we kind of, once Vons is open, it's very easy to go down and paint more and more green curbs once we see how the employee parking on Catalina is going to shift around. I think we're going to see the employees that come down for the day are going to move over to where that now open parking is. So it's kind of like everybody get up in their musical chairs and all move at once. That's it.
Yeah. And you have Janie behind you, Bob.
Will the parking lot at Vons include bike racks? Will it include a place for the little carts people will pull, or the little push carts like that you see? Okay, and then the other thing is, I'm presuming all of these permits are free. Okay, so that's...
to the residents that end up with the permit, yeah.
First year they're free.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, it's, we're just trying to roll this out.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, so, did you get anything out of this last little discussion?
Potentially, I'm thinking that you don't want to go up Catalina, and you don't want to go up Beacon. The rest of it on Sumner and Catalina around the Vons store, where we've been actually hearing from the public recently that they're interested in something, that you want maybe some different alternatives, maybe one side versus the other.
And I'm not sure we don't need to go up Sumner. I'm not sure that.
You mean at the front entrance there?
No, up on up Canyon.
150 feet.
Or the 300 or whatever.
300 blocks.
The 150 feet you're talking about.
Yeah, I got 150 feet up in the 300 block.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we need to turn that into 1 hour. I mean, we've got a lot of 1 hour around it now. I mean, we're adding all that 1 hour to it.
Well, 150 feet is how many vehicles?
15.
Yeah, 15 vehicles.
Full size?
15 golf carts.
No, golf carts.
Okay, but full size can park there too.
That would be about 7, 8.
Okay.
I mean, as it was pointed out, we could always come back and paint it again.
Yes, we can.
If we, if
paint
it doesn't work, we need it, we can go back and
You
paint
can
it.
paint it red. You
So
can paint it gray.
you're saying start at 75 feet and
No,
something
just
like
start.
that?
I'm saying the only green we do is Lower Catalina and Lone Sumner, and on the Vaughn side of the street is green, and the other side is the permit parking, like Pam said earlier, for the residents. And then the rest of the stuff stays open parking for the time being, and if we need to make some more 1 hour parking, we have the ability to go back and make it.
Okay, so don't do anything right here, right now. Okay.
And I guess I just don't understand that logic. I mean, if you're reasoning for making Lower Catalina 1 hour and not near the entrance of the store, is that for different reasons than the Vons?
I didn't follow that.
I didn't follow that either.
Well, if somebody wants to go to the grocery store,
Okay.
the preference would be not to park a block away and walk. The preference is to park as close as you can to the grocery store.
In parking lot.
Yeah, you're going to go
Right, in the parking lot, I get that. I'm just saying, I don't understand
So in the parking
why.
lot, you're faced with the decision, am I turning left onto upper, Summer, or am I turning right, or am I going to jog over and go all the way down to Catalina? I tend to agree with you, but who knows what it's going to, look like in terms of employees. I think it's not just customers of Bonds, that there are other parking impacts.
Yeah,
and that's another white elephant that we haven't addressed, is that there is a significant amount of employee parking that, I have heard it. I can't say how many times, but I've heard it where the Vaughn's parking lot itself should not be allowed to have employee parking. I don't know what all the decisions were made. I was not participative in the Vaughn's agreement, but that's a comment that I've heard floated around. And then also, you know, if you don't allow employee parking in the parking lot, for example, where are those employees going to park? And that's going to be right there at the beginning of Sumner.
Yeah,
And that's why we limit
there's
the
an
parking.
education piece where you tell them to go to Metropole, and that needs to be talked with the management.
But if you don't have restrictions on the parking right there, that's where they're going to park.
And so maybe some of that SWAT is forcing some of those employees. That's kind of the thought when we were putting the green out, was some of the longer-term employee parking that would be down at the waterfront or Vaughn's or whatever, they get forced, you know, to Metropole, you know, up Beacon, you know, and so at that point, then it leaves it open for the residents and the customers. They're most certainly going to be there, you know, because, you know, they have the kid, they have my,
Right.
I did my weekly grocery.
And I just, you know, I just want to be heard that there is going to be a far greater impact on parking on Sumner than there is on Catalina.
Because it's at the front end of the store. That makes sense.
It seems that there's a lot of new Vaughn's employees.
To the extent that the conditions of approval, Amanda and I will look at them, and there is the requirement of a parking plan, to the extent that we can require Vaughn's employees to park on Metropole, we'll make that.
Okay, so for those of us that live on the other side of town, or the back side of the Vaughn's, okay, so if I was going to go to Vaughn's for my big shopping, I would probably go Tremont to Sumner, because if I go Beacon and then I turn the corner and there's no place to park, now I'm either going down Sumner, going down the alley at the post office, trying to turn around and come back, or going up here. So Sumner is really going to be impacted.
But you're going to pull into the parking lot to determine whether or not there's parking.
No, not if I'm going down Sumner, I can look and see. But if I go Beacon, I'm not going to be able to see, and then I'm trapped.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know.
I don't know.
Is there a stub wall
I mean,
or
we gotta
something
try
where you're not
stuff.
going to be able to see from Beacon?
But I'm
no, it
already
should be
there.
wide-
No.
When you look to the
It's gonna be
right,
wide
you
open.
should be able
Yeah.
to see clearly
Yeah, you should be
across
able to
the
see.
whole.
But I'll already be there, I guess, is the problem.
Yeah.
For Sumner, I can know before.
Right.
And either park
Right.
on Sumner and walk or whatever, but, and I know it's not just about me, it's about everything.
Can I ask for clarification on the residential parking permits that you're proposing? I've heard when they come home in the evening after work, they won't have a place to park. So are you proposing for an evening permit only for the residents? Are you proposing all day, the only people that can park on that side of the street, whichever you designate, is for residents and nobody else can park
Well,
there?
usually the permit parking says that it's permit only between 3 and midnight or something is
Okay,
usually
so
how those work.
that's why I was asking for that clarification.
Yeah.
But if they're already parked there, they're cool. Well, they don't have to park their
Right.
cars just to get back between,
Right.
to get home.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. What's the score?
What's the score?
One score.
Dan, is that you?
1-1.
1-1? Just go like this.
1-1.
Okay.
Top of the 6th.
Oh, top of the 6th, okay.
So,
All right.
I guess what I'm hearing is we want to consider that permit parking on one side of the street.
That was, I didn't hear any of the other city council people.
Oh, I
weighing
like
on
that idea.
so-
Yeah,
Yeah, no, we agree with that.
yeah. Catalina and Sumner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
On the one side of the, I think we just need to do it on one side of the street, that there's enough
Okay,
there
so
to
I'll
accommodate.
craft an alternative on that and see what it would look like. And then, we're saying not to have an alternative up Beacon right now? You're not interested in that?
No.
Wait, I would compromise and say, let's do 75 feet up. It's just you're going to impact residents there too.
Okay, so then we can determine that distance. You're just-
I'm
you're
convinced by
interested in
what Cindy was saying, that Sumner, Upper Sumner is going to have,
But
or
wait,
lower, whichever word.
Can I just
Up Canyon
clarify?
Sumner.
Were you just saying that you wanted to do only 1 hour parking on one side of Sumner?
No, the permit parking would
Uh-huh.
be on only one side.
Oh,
And the
okay,
1
'cause
hour
there's-
would be on the other.
Okay, okay. I just want to make sure Sumner was not going to turn into an all-day parking spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The spaces in the lot were sized to our Autolet required parking signs. which I think is 6 by 10. So they probably will not come in the signs.
Okay.
They're not wide enough.
Okay. Okay, now let's get back to, thank you. Let's get back to Catalina. So what are we doing on Catalina Street down towards the pier?
So down toward from 3rd Street on, there, I'm going to bring some additional information. Dudley had worked with some of the businesses there.
Not, okay, 3rd Street on. Which way you going when you go
Toward
on?
the waterfront.
Okay, no, I'm going the other way.
Okay.
I'm going 3rd Street, Catalina up.
Up
Okay,
Canyon.
and so
Up
we
Canyon.
can gain
and
some
down.
parking that's now red right
Right.
now, and I'm saying, I think it's 40 or 50 feet there.
Right.
But I need to confirm that with the vehicles that are entering
awesome.
the travel plaza.
And that's where all the that's where all the bikes and motorcycles park as well?
Yeah, it's across the street from it.
Across the street?
That was all these.
Oh, that was for the
bus-
wide
that was
turn,
for
you're
the
right.
buses
Yeah,
that
there's
turn into the
a
parking.
big stretch. of
Okay,
Correct.
but let's say that's not needed, then what are we talking about doing on that section of Catalina? Are we talking 1 hour parking and then permits for everybody else? Or 2?
1 hour on one side.
hour.
Only.
Permits on the other side.
I think 2 hours. I don't think 1 hour is enough.
I'd like to start with 1 hour.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just, our boys are going to be, I don't know how they're going to do that. It's just a,
revenue stream.
what?
It's a revenue stream.
I know it is, but it's also,
So.
Okay, I don't
we put
agree on 1 hour, but
and
go
if
ahead.
we don't like it, we can just put a little bit of green paint and we put 2.
There we go.
so,
Real simple.
It's
So
simple.
this-
okay,
Yeah.
and so, okay, and just, oh, go ahead, Dudley.
No, we have different
I want to
things.
mention, we're talking about the beacon. I have very few residents that actually have parking spots or need to have a parking spot there. I think you're losing a lot of great access to the front of Vaughn's by
You're talking-
not putting 1 hour parking on Beacon.
Beacon to Metropole.
Yeah, there's
I
people that
agree
are
to
just
that.
parking there and just going downtown for the day or working or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's, if we're talking like Cindy's saying, Catalina's maybe not the greatest option if you're gonna go shopping, but Beacon is right there in front of the store.
Right.
And I have very few people that actually need to park there because their houses are there.
Right,
Bonita, or not Bonita Way.
yeah.
Sunny
Love
Lane,
Paloma,
yeah.
yeah.
No, you're right.
They
That's
have-
true.
They have
That's
other
true,
parking.
Charlie.
They have
Pastor
places
Ron
to
has
go.
parking.
All of the seniors, they've got down below.
Right, right.
So
The
people that are
residents of
parking
Sunny Lane.
there are
So just those 2 little houses right
close to
there by
down.
Pastor Ron's probably.
Yeah, but just, I didn't want to lose that.
No,
business.
okay.
I think that's
Might be.
Okay. So, okay, but let's assume we 1 hour in Lower Catalina. Everybody that's parking there now is going to go where?
We
And then-
hope Metropole. People that are
Right,
parking
that's
to
what-
work for the day, we hope will go to Metropole.
But they're not going to start and we're not going to roll this out until the Vons is open, you said.
And then you're going to have to change the 1 hour restriction on Metropole. Let's make certain that we don't have it 1 hour on Metropole. If we think that
it's not
people are going to
enforced
be, it is in the
There,
lower
there's a
part.
lot of not,
Not upper Metropole, not enforced.
there's no signs. Yeah, it's all day parking
All day
on
parking.
the upper part. So that should eventually change perhaps.
So I'm hearing I'm going to bring an iteration that would have permit parking on one side next to the residence. That's where the permit parking would be.
Yes.
Maybe a little bit of green down the end to replace that red curb. And then the other whole side would be green. Is that-
Down?
You got something about green paint?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get closer. So, okay, then let's check off down there, that's 200 block.
right.
And then on Sumner, the same thing, green on one side, and then all of the other would be permit parking
Yeah,
on the resident side.
right.
And
I-
then on Beacon, considering what Dudley told us, is that 1 hour parking, try that
On both sides.
on both sides?
Yeah.
And try that, we always can change it. But
Yeah,
I-
because you might have to, well, these people would get permits.
I'm
so they're
thinking if
good.
you're coming out of the hills and
Yeah.
you're driving down and you've always had problems parking in the parking lot, you're just gonna, and go, I'm gonna walk across the street. I mean, that,
No ticket on Sundays.
Well, you know what, that's why I increase it to 2 hours, and we do make it so that people can get
No tickets on
Sun-
Sunday.
I mean, why is that? Why is that?
because everybody's in
It's
church.
always been that way.
Why is
It's
what?
always been that way.
Why is what?
Okay, come on.
Mayor,
Yes.
why is what?
Why has it always been no tickets on Sunday?
I think it's in our municipal code, that's why.
Oh, that's right. Well, those can always be changed too. huh?
Is it? Yes, anything in the municipal code can be changed.
Well, I'd be curious what other cities do. Does everybody get Sundays off all around the United States? For they all from taking?
But also keep in mind that church services on Sunday, now the entire Metropole is going to be open. So there's going to be a heck of a lot more parking on Metropole for church services.
So heading up Catalina and Sumner. Catalina, where I've got
You have to walk to church, Dan. Simple as that.
Get rid of that option.
Oh, that's not your problem.
You mean up Canyon?
Up Catalina.
Up Catalina, up Canyon.
Up Canyon.
Up Canyon.
Yeah, up Canyon, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think that needs to be green.
Okay. And then on Sumner, only a piece of that up Canyon?
Ole says no, but you may need a little bit.
Ole says no, I say yes, Pam said 75 feet.
Yeah.
So I would propose,
As I come back,
I'm going to propose
So think about
75
it.
feet and compromise.
No, I agree. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think I
And
got
let's
what
try
I need,
it.
at least to get an exhibit together so
Okay.
that,
Yeah.
and then I'll dig into the data, so you'll have, number of vehicles, especially like beacons, so you'll have that. And so you'll have some data to depend on when you make your decision to give me guidance.
But this is our direction. We're giving direction tonight on what we're going to do.
Okay, I just want to finalize the exact
Right.
dimensions so that when I go do this, I can say, at this house, I'm going to paint this green.
Well, and part of this also depends on what the travel pattern is for the Vaughn's trucks.
Yes.
And that's an
And-
important,
And so
that's an
I've
important
talked to
question.
Avalon, the employees at Avalon Freight Service, and we're going to go meet in the
And do
field.
it,
And
yeah.
we're going to do proof of concept, okay?
Okay, and there's, and on,
Because that could change everything in that.
right, and on Catalina, where we're touching, right now, there's no handicap spaces there?
On Catalina, there's none in the 200 block.
None.
But there is at the waterfront,
Right, down further,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, okay, yeah.
And as I bring even some alternatives to change some of that, of course, up by the waterfront, we want the ADA spots because we
Right.
want to get them closer to be able to go to the restaurant, and we've got special code anyway.
Sure.
For them to drop off even by the waterfront. But we'd like to have whoever's dropping them off, or if they were dropped, they would have a parking spot that would be close to that.
Yeah,
So, okay?
cool.
Well, that's what I need. Is there any other question?
No, thank you, Bob.
Yes, that's good.
This was very.
Comments from the community, we're good? Leslie?
So you keep saying everybody's gonna go to Metropole. So does that mean you're gonna change all the diagonal 1 hour parking to all-day parking? And does that mean that the large vehicle parking will still be on the museum side all day? Because right now it starts right about Radio Shack, right?
Right.
It goes up toward the church where you can park all day. Otherwise, all of Metropole, Lower Metropole is 1 hour except for large
Right.
vehicle.
And I just don't think we're there. I mean, personally, if we really want to make this a walking community and a perfect world with public transit, we'd
Right.
have big wide sidewalks and bike lanes.
But I'm
But-
just thinking about if I hope you're still going to keep some 1 hour parking on Metropole.
Oh, yes, oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe more.
Because all of those places that are currently all-day parking are always full.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know why we didn't change, well, I don't know why we never did that.
But you're saying everybody's going to park on Metropole,
Right.
but
I don't know why we
you're not
don't do that
increasing
now and
any
limit the
all-day
times.
parking on Metropole for employees. That's
Right.
what I'm asking.
And I would still propose that those diagonal spots stay as is. I mean, it
All
is
day?
the widest road in town. It's the most accessible to be able to have that type of parking.
All day?
So it just.
No, we're not there
right,
now,
right.
but just to
Right.
leave
Well,
it
I would
as.
just think that as we're looking at employee parking,
And
it's
then we're
just
gonna
at
put
what
meters.
spot do the greens stop?
Please.
And that you could be uphill, that you could change some of those green as we get up into the 200 block of Metropole. Do some of those diagonal spots turn to all-day parking? That was just so that some of those employees, bonds, have some spot to park
Right.
and they can walk the block, okay?
Right.
That was-
Cool.
Thank you.
Good job. Oh, Carl has a question.
Second base.
Did you say second base? That's fine.
All right. I have a question about the intersections, not the actual parking, but where you're proposing that median, are there going to be 2 additional stop signs there? It actually create like two
No,
intersections instead of just one intersection?
there's only one additional stop sign, which would be inside the parking lot. There's already stop signs in every other location.
There's 4 stop signs.
Right now, there's 4 stop signs. There'll be one additional inside the parking lot.
Yeah, right as you're pulling out.
So that was my question. So somebody making a right-hand turn from going downhill on Beacon would have the right-of-way. The person that stopped at Sumner would watch them turn and would have to wait until they completed their...
I think that stop signs on the median might be needed with all the extra traffic that's going to be there, and the fact that you're still not stopping the problem. People that are coming down Beacon from the church are coming around and just ignoring the people that are waiting on Sumner. It still causes that flow.
This creates more of that 4-way stop.
And the stop sign and the crosswalk will be moved up closer to the other crosswalk.
5 stops coming out
Well-
of the driveway.
Go ahead, Bob.
Start with simple, keep on adding.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the way I've always been successful, you know, and we know this, okay, and then, so just keep on adding until, if it doesn't work, then that's the next thing we go, pull out a toolbox, right? We can put another stop sign here.
Okay.
If that does, you know, so we keep on adding to it, but the main thing is, all of these improvements we're talking about are very cost-effective, cheap.
Yeah.
You know, and they're easy for our own crews to do, okay?
Right, great, thank you. Okay, here we're moving on to item 9.
Okay, item number 9 is the ordinance introducing and waiving all further readings for the ordinance that would move our election date to the month of March in 2020. That was at council's direction.
And this will be an uncodified ordinance.
It won't be in the book.
It will not be in the book.
Well, isn't there an uncodified section in
There isn't.
Yeah, there is.
There isn't a codified section.
But it won't get it done.
Okay.
This doesn't have a number.
I will move to introduce and waive all readings of an ordinance of the City of Avalon, moving the date of the city's general municipal election to the first Tuesday after the first Monday in March on even number of years or such other month as the statewide district primary elections may be held per state law beginning March 2020.
I'll second.
Comments? Call for the vote. Thank
All
you.
ayes.
Thank you, Gabby, for that report. And item number 10 is Gabby's as well.
Item number 10 is a resolution of the City of Avalon of the City Council of the City of Avalon, California, approving and adopting to amend the Conflict of Interest Code pursuant to the Political Reform Act of 1974.
And we've just updated the conflict of interest for the positions to currently reflect the current positions in the city and the required disclosure and filing of the Form 700s with various positions. So this is an administrative task.
And to delete the positions that no longer exist in the city.
Okay.
And I just want to say that I very much appreciated the red line version
Yes.
to review. It
makes life easier.
It's not a fun read to begin with, so thank you for that.
And the big ray.
And with that, I would make a motion to adopt a resolution approving and adopting the amended Conflict of Interest Code pursuant to the Political Reform Act of 1974.
Is there a second? Yes. Is there a second?
Second. I'm sorry, I thought you were second.
I thought you said second.
No, I said, is there a second?
Oh,
okay. No comments, call for the vote.
All ayes.
Okay. Well, awesome. Okay, if there's no further business, we'd like to say goodnight, Tony.
We're not going in a closed session. We're not ready yet with the information.
Oh, it's dinner time.
Okay, and so we're going to say goodnight, Tony, and go Dodgers.
Night, Tony.
Okay, night-night.
1-1.
1-1 still?
Yeah.
What's the score?
What inning is it?
1-1.
Oh, 6. There's an hour left.
All right, here we go.
There's no ties in baseball.